Good evening, internet. It's time for some midweek geek. It's Wednesday. I know I missed last week. I'm afraid because I've still got a bit of a rough chest, but it's a lot better than it was. So if I do mute myself tonight and sort of lurch off my chair and start going, I'm not dying. I'm not dying. I'm getting better. yeah. Um. So I missed everybody last week, apart from Friday, of course. I did stream on Friday. How are you? How is my panel tonight? My esteemed panel in order of arrival. Halakar, you were first. You and Bear arrived before me.
Yeah, nothing else to do, so got on early.
Okay.
Since you're still an extra hour ahead of us, I had plenty of time.
Well, that is true. That will change this weekend. We finally move our clocks this weekend. Bear.
Hey.
How are you?
Tired, exhausted.
How goes the Kickstarter thing?
No, the backer kit's doing very well, but I've been writing for a week and a half now, and tonight I got to do a 4-color cafe, so I figured hell that I'll show up on your thing as well. I also like how Brian James says, "Hello, panel, Bear." Like, aw, why did I get singled out? Is that a good thing, a bad thing? Am I part of
the panel? It's a very good thing.
Or am I just some weirdo that's hanging out? I don't know anymore. I'm just tired and fed up with the universe, so yeah.
No, that would be me.
What? You're the weirdo?
Yeah.
Hanging out. Just hanging out, yeah.
No fight here, man.
And
that reminds me of an old Sesame Street song. 4 of these things belong together, but one of them's not quite the same.
One of these things that's not like the other.
Right, that one.
Exactly. You could be talking about a lot of different things.
It's literally each one of us could have a case for why we don't belong. Just saying.
I would argue I've got multiple.
I would argue you're not allowed to play that card, sir.
No, I wasn't talking about that. That's what I was referring to.
Fair enough.
Iman, you are certainly the only one with a completely full head of hair.
That's not true. Where's Major's musings at?
Sax, we can see the comb front, buddy. Come on.
There's a little bit of recession there, isn't there, Sax? A little bit. It's beginning. It's just beginning.
You want to see mine? Look at this. I've got a 5 head.
Please. Please. You want to see a receding hairline? There you go. Look at that. It's just the Sahara happening right there.
Halakar gave up years ago, I think.
I'd have to show you my back to show you my receding hairline.
Ouch! Ouch!
And of course, we do have a Saxius with us as well. Hello, Saxius.
Hello.
So we have our panel here. 3 old gits and 2 relatively young ones. Young in body, but maybe not in mind. And we have a chat as well. Hello, chat. Hello, Mr. Baker. Hello, Daniel. Hello, Brian. Hello, Straw Piglet. Hello, Andy. Right. Before we start, as always, let's talk about gaming over the last 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks since I last streamed. Start with you, Halakar. Any games?
Oh, yeah. My group made it to the temple and against the cult of the reptile gods. They cleared the top 2 levels and are just about ready to go down into the basement. Mm-hmm. They had already killed the big cleric when their group got ambushed at the inn, but they ran into some wolves out in the courtyard and some monks inside and some skeletons and goblins and a half crazy woman that was in a cage that wouldn't have been half crazy except they killed the cleric a week ago, so she hadn't eaten or drank anything in a week. So,
oh yes, she's the kidnapped girl. Yes.
Yeah. That's
yes.
Very, very inappropriate to talk about what happened to her in today's modern audience group.
Well, she withstood the charming effect of the Naga. Anyway, let's not give too many more spoilers. I think most of us know the adventure by now. Is that the only game you've played?
That's it. And then I started working on. They've got several options once they finish this where they're going to go. So I finished up the Myconid caves in case they go investigate the water slide in the cave system they found long ago. And I've got the first bastion of the priests of chaos from Limbo with their Limbo goblins, in case they use the key they found that fits in the flaming handprint, or
Do the goblins dance under poles? Then is that what they do?
What's
the
that?
Goblins, the goblins dance under low poles. Is that...
No, they actually each type of Limbo goblin has two different colors in their skin that tell what the one is the majority is the element that they are resistant to. The one that is the smallest is the element they are susceptible to.
Ah, that's a good idea.
So each goblin you you roll differently to see what it is, but they're immune to the caves that are connected to Limbo have a rock that's from that plane that causes an environmental effect every 10 minutes within the cavern. So sometimes gravity will reverse, sometimes the walls become magnetized. There's all different kinds of cool things that happen, but the Limbo goblins are immune to that because it's their home plane. So that's why the priest has brought them in to be the cannon fodder defense.
It all makes sense.
So yeah, they've got three possible options that I've fully written out for when they come out of the finish up with the cult, or if they decide to go somewhere else, I'll just wing it.
Cool. Right, Bear.
Last time I played was our Palladium game, where you guys tried your level best in the third act to destroy the campaign, which was quite entertaining. And then last Friday, Max Liao had me, Malachi, and Hungar on to have a struggle session about what went wrong and how we felt about the end of it and all that fun stuff. And we wish you had been there because we wanted you to answer a question for us, which was, why did Sir DeVere revert after making advances in the previous session of being open about things to being a complete putz? My theory is he almost died, and that rattled his cage, and he's reverting to type out of a fear of mortality. The rest of them had no clue. Hungar, though, did own his chaos and said he was just in a bad mood that day dealing with some stuff, and that's why he was being less Philip and more just Hungar being a goofball all night long. And Malachi said he was just really tired, which is why he froze every time he had to make a decision, which I thought was hilarious. And that's the last game I played, so I haven't played since then.
I would say it's because Gerard is struggling with the conflict of his upbringing and his situation of those around him. He has these traits that are conditioned into him that he's battling with.
I thought you and Cody did a really good job of the power struggle, and Cody portraying the wise man properly by just going, okay, what are we doing now, DeVere? Every time something happened and putting it all on DeVere's shoulders, since DeVere wanted to be the big man. So I thought that was pretty cool. It's really, really cool, actually. I'm looking forward to the next session, seeing how this all plays out, because you got to admit, that was complete Keystone Capers craziness at the end. That third act turned into like a Corman fantasy film as opposed to what it had been. So I'm curious to see how we come back from that, you know?
Yes. Well, we shall see.
May I remind you, Sir Gerard, we lost our horses.
May I remind you, Sir Gerard, that you went to the woods, which you knew was dangerous, met the wolfmen, went back to the town, got taken prisoner, escaped the town, and now are back in the woods where the wolfmen are. So it was kind of a fat fire fat situation, I think, which is quite entertaining.
Yes, very, very much so. Very much so. Gerard is finding the whole thing difficult, I will admit that.
Fair enough.
And he doesn't quite have the intellect to process it all either.
That's fair. I also should mention Max Liao then tried to pimp me out to run a Palladium fantasy game for Kevin Simbita and Sean Robertson from Palladium Books, to which I'm like, first of all, I'm not your whore. Second of all, I would never want to run a game for the guys who wrote the game. You know what I mean? Like, are you mad? Are you insane?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been that. Now that I've been just writing for Heroic and getting that all ready to go.
Iman, you, of course, have played a game since then. How did last night's Call of Cthulhu go for you?
New character, huh?
Oh, here we go. Yeah, I knew this was inevitably going to come up. So my character got introduced to the story maybe about half an hour into the session, and an hour after that, he was already unconscious and dying. So that was fun.
Yeah.
Well, someone's got to keep the kill rate up.
Well, the thing is, my character's an ex-soldier, so he doesn't back down from fights, so which is obviously not a good trick to have in Call of Cthulhu.
No, not when you have a gun pointing at you.
Hey, I smacked it out of his hand, to be fair.
Yeah, but two of them had guns and two of them had knives. You smacked the gun out of one of their hands.
Yep.
Too bad
and
you
then dodged out of the way of the other one, and then got my balls stamped on.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I said he was going to attempt to kick you in the crotch while you were on the ground, and then I rolled a critical.
Yeah.
What good timing to roll a critical in Cthulhu? I don't know. I rolled a 0-1 or a 0-2 or something. It was just like thud.
Yeah. No, you rolled literally a 1. I needed a 1. That was it. There was no way for me to win that.
No.
And on top of that, the NPC who was helping us in the fight, even though he had 70 fighting brawl with his chair leg, kept missing.
It didn't help, did it? It didn't. He was the best fighter there, and he couldn't hit a thing while trying to hit these goons with the chair.
But in terms of the title of the stream and the devil is in the detail, obviously I don't know what the book looks like, but I'm assuming it has like rudimentary sentences of stuff that's going on, and you flesh it out as you will.
Yep.
So you did a really good job of that.
I hope so. I try to. Hello, Daniel. You've jumped in ahead of Saxius because Saxius's internet appears to be playing up. How are you doing?
Doing okay. How about you guys?
Pretty
Fine,
good. Mate.
fine.
Thanks.
Every
You've played a
day
few
is
games.
gift.
You've played a few games with us over the last couple of weekends.
Yeah. I even managed to stay awake for a couple of them.
Hey. So, Saxius, how's the internet connection?
No, it's because my webcam sometimes just decides to cut out, and then StreamYard goes, "Oh, you don't have anything connected. We're gonna kick you out." So it's just IT being IT. So yeah, I don't know. I've just hit my computer a few times and threatened it. Seems to work.
Yeah, you do, that's what you do with a car as well, isn't it?
No.
So, any games for you recently, Saxius?
Yeah. Just trying to remember what I've done to my players. Because my second edition group they have found the jungle where the Yonti are living, and they've gone full commando mode, which for me as a DM, it's concerning because it means that one player is taking charge over everything as they are just crawling their way through every situation, and they are sneaking past everything that they can, and they are not engaging in anything that they want. They're just following one player around as he's basically snaking his way through and being the thief of the group to guide the rest of them. So it means we've had a few sessions where it's just been one player sits there, looks at a map, and tries to draw out ways for the players to get through things while everyone sits quietly and occasionally asks questions. So it's to me it's not fun because I have all these things that they can interact with, and they've decided that no, we are not doing any of this. We have got one goal only. It is to get into the Auntie layer. It is to plant the bomb there, and it is to get out of there, and we have no interest in doing anything else. Which is a mindset I understand, because I would be doing exactly the same.
Fair enough. There is an antidote to that, and that is a very large, very, very well hidden pit with poisonous spikes for that thief to fall into.
Yes. The guy who's leading this as the thief has optimized himself to be anti-trap and high stealth and all of that. So he's not a thief for picking pockets. He's a thief for picking locks. and for crawling through the ventilations to get to where he needs to be to stab people and sneak out. So, fair enough. Good play on the players. I'd do the exactly same. I'm now sitting on the other end of the screen going, I have made a mistake by amping it up this way. So I'm going to deal with the consequences of that.
My last 2 weeks as a player have been thoroughly defined by player conflict. In Bear's Palladium game, I sort of stirred the pot a little bit. My character is a bit of a moody individual who's not as clever as he likes to think he is.
Sorry, did you say knobhead?
He's a knobhead, yeah, he is. He's not as clever as he likes to think he is. He keeps getting himself into into situations that he can't talk himself out of. And he's going to keep doing that, I'm afraid. That's just the way I'm going to play him. Because he is a little bit pompous. He's not a bad guy at heart. He's quite happy to help out, but he wants to be sort of in the forefront. He was brought up to be in the forefront. And he's a knight, so he's not going to back down. So when you've got an idiot who won't back down, what's going to happen?
You die.
Things are going to happen, yeah. And then on Monday night, in our Greek hero themed game, we were on an island where there were all these wonderful, it's a paradise island. And I'm playing a satyr in that game. I'm from the forest. Don't you hurt my forest now. Don't you be doing any cutting down of trees, any more than necessary. Just be respectful. Especially don't go hunting that beautiful golden ram that has led us to the center of the island for some stupid prize or whatever it is you want. So I cast hypnotic pattern on the party to try and stop them in their tracks from hunting the ram. And then the party got ambushed by a lion, a pack of lions that were actually hunting us. And it's because we'd sort of, some had saved against hypnotic patterns, some hadn't, some had like pressed on after the ram, we were split up, and we nearly all died as a result. I say it's their fault for not listening to me. I'm not going to let them hunt that ram. I'm sorry, I'm not going to. They will not. They're not going to abuse the forest. So there. Of course, and we played Call of Cthulhu last night, and I nearly killed Iman for the second time in 2 sessions. Or Iman nearly killed him.
It could have been 3 times in 3 sessions had last week's not been postponed.
Well, that's true. That's true. But no, Iman survived. You survived this time, and you finally got to the end of the Milan chapter.
I do want to point out I survived because one of our other players is bravery.
Which one?
Jerome.
Jerome was brave. Yes.
I think he had a bit of a guilty conscience, though. Maybe that's why he did it.
He went mad with his flip knife. Yes. Yeah. But it was a bit touch and go. You weren't supposed to. It wasn't supposed to be a fight there. You weren't supposed to like start threatening them and pull knives and all that sort of thing.
Well, no. They were pointing a gun at the doorman, and then I whacked the gun out of his hand, right? And then every other ones were like, "How dare you!" in Italian, obviously.
They were trying to get access to the theatre. The doorman was saying no. So one of them pulls out a gun to say, "Look, we are going in." You then wander over with your kosh and go bang, and the fight kicks off. Yeah, isn't that what happened?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
pretty much. Yes.
Well,
so
we sort of had a very strong inkling, or we could argue we knew that one of the artifact pieces that we needed to complete the story was in there, and they were trying to get it too. So we couldn't let that happen. I mean, we could have gone about it a different way, but
there's 2 times. I mean, I'm going to come to this when we start talking about the environment and stuff. But there's 2 times I've run this particular section of Horror on the Orient Express, and both times it has started off as a detailed and atmospheric jaunt around Milan, finding and all the beauty of Milan is somewhat drab and depressed. And I've thoroughly enjoyed like painting that scene. And both times it has ended up like the ending scene from Benny Hill. You know, where there's a big chase happens and they're all running around and people are chasing him and yeah. I might as well just get a copy of Yakety Sax and have that playing in the background whenever I run a scenario again. Because that's how it's turned out both times.
Well, part of that is because of the dice rolls, obviously, and it's not just our action. I mean, that fight could have gone a lot smoother had Marco been able to actually hit the guys with his chair leg.
If you know your Call of Cthulhu stats, Marco the Bouncer had 17 hit points, a damage bonus of plus 1d6, a build of 2, which is very big, strength of 90. Was it size 90? Strength 85?
I think it was
something like that.
Yeah.
He was a big ogre of a guy. 70 in brawl, 70 in hitting people with broken chairs. How many times did he successfully hit anyone with a broken chair in that entire fight?
I think twice out of like 10, maybe 12 attempts.
No, he successfully blocked an attack. One attack.
Oh, did he? Okay.
That was it. He didn't successfully attack them at all.
Are you sure? I'm sure he got 1 or 2.
No, I never once rolled 2d6 for his damage in that whole fight.
Oh, okay.
And he must have attacked 6 or 7 times.
I feel like it was more than that. Maybe I'm conflating the attacks and the dodges.
And the dodges, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
And he ended up fumbling and breaking his chair against the entrance to the.
That was so funny.
Anyhow,
as though it couldn't get any worse.
As if it couldn't get any worse. No. But it was a good session. It was a good session. And you're
now going to loved it.
You're going to be, yeah. And as Andy says here, his walking stick broke as well. So who else has joined us? We've got Crafting Gamer. We've got K5K. Yes, I have moved up into the attic. Michael Stronghold has joined us as well. Yeah, N1 is an excellent module. It is very much an excellent module. Right. He did hit, but the goon dodged. Yes, you are correct. The only time he landed to hit, the goon dodged out of the way. That's right. Yeah. Yes.
Trust Andy with his really
he made notes.
Detailed notes. Yeah,
he makes notes. Right, we do. Speaking of detail, we have a topic for tonight.
Ooh, nice.
And this is bringing detail to your games, whether you're building a world or just playing a short campaign or even a one-shot. How do you bring in the details? What sort of details do you focus on? And what do you prioritize? And I'm going to throw Bear straight into the deep end here, because I know you've put a lot of detail into your Palladium game.
I put a lot of detail in all my games.
But I mean, if your Palladium game is anything to go by, there's a hell of a lot of detail in there. You've got a history, you've got a massive map with lots of different warring states, all with their own histories and their own religious customs and all their own attitudes. How long did all that take you?
Look, all right. Let's start with hello. My name is Bear, and I have a problem. I'm a chronic world builder.
Hi, Bear.
Thank you, Halakar.
Hello.
I got my 6-month coin once, and then immediately had an idea for a city state, and well, that went out the window. So there you go. No. What it boils down to for me is that I love designing worlds. I love designing histories. I love designing a place for the players to exist, but I want that place to be real. I want it to feel real. I want it to have real things. So, for example, the fantasy world you're playing in, you're on the island of Albana, which is in the Pendrick Isles, but it's part of the larger world, right? Which I call the West, which is then part of the larger world, which is called Agos, which is the larger continent, which is then part of the larger world, which is called Erin. So it just keeps boom, 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 boom. Now, this started in, I'm going to say 1990 was my first campaign world. And then as the years have gone by, I've built new campaign worlds, and then I suck the cool parts of them into this one world, and then I build more campaign worlds and suck the cool parts in. So this final world that you're playing in is probably the world that combines, for me, what I feel are the best aspects of all the campaigns I've been designing since the 90s. So technically, how long did it take? Well, apparently 34 years. But if you want to take how long it took to put this one together, thank you, sir. This one was probably, I've been working this specific version of it, only been a couple of years, but it's cannibalizing and re-editing things from other worlds.
Because it looks to me like the maps alone have taken hours.
Would you like to see? Would you like to see the map?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah, go on.
Let me open up the map for y'all just to show you how fucking chronic I am. And how much I need an intervention, I swear to God. But my players are the worst people for the intervention. They're just like, more, please, all the time, more. Can we just have more? Please, 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 more. I'm like, okay, you're not helping. You're just making it worse. But that's okay.
So they're codependent.
Yeah.
Oh, they're enablers of the highest order. All my.
That says to me you must be doing something right, though.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, you know, I've got players I've been playing with. The oldest player I've been playing with is someone I've been playing with since 1985. And then the next oldest player is someone I've been playing with since 1989. So this is sort of the immediate known world that we're looking at. And their campaign is taking place all the way up here on the islands of Albana, the Pendrick Isles. But there is a massive world, and there's still a new world beyond it, and there's the far east and the far south and all that stuff. There's even more stuff to the north. But this is the known world. This is any character in the world should know that this part of the world exists, because this is where the trade happens, this is where the history has happened, etc., etc. This is a topographic map. The green is meant to represent low areas, not forests or plains. It's just that's the way it is. And it was easy to build because once I had the outline I was happy with, I could literally just go on Google and find real world topographic maps, and then using Photoshop I was able to sort of beast this all together over a period of time. That's why some of it looks a little bit like, hey, that looks like Turkey. Yeah, it does, because I used the mountains of Turkey because they were really good. Like that,
Of course.
But that's it. So yeah, there you go. That's the chaos of my world.
The K5K makes a great comment of like, would you like to see the map? And it's like, yes. Like any other game, I would immediately go like, how's this a question? Of course, show me your map,
please. I actually have a place on that world just for Saxius if he ever winds up playing.
My God, the moment you told me about it, I was like, oh.
I have sort of a Danish Atlantean ancestry part called the Seekings of Dain. And the Dainsk are they're kind of like arrogant pricks. They'd make Devere look downright welcoming and charming by comparison to their arrogance.
The idea of like being a mercantile character from that background, it just strikes a chord to me.
Oh yeah. But yeah, so there you go.
Yep.
Right. So, is anybody want to follow that?
Yeah, sorry.
Halakar, tell us about your game, because I know you've put quite a lot of effort into your game. I know you're currently running them through a published module that you've dropped into your
just
game.
because it's one of my favorite modules.
yeah.
But you can't see it because of the glare of the light. But there's a big map on my wall over there that's just the town they start in, and the history, which the players don't know because they don't need to yet. They're just country bumpkins out of a little farm town. The planet they're on was hit by a massive asteroid. So basically the known world, and it's not even truly known yet, is a big ring. It's a crater. Inside the ring is fresh water, outside the ring is salt water. There have been very, very few people in the last 1,000 years that have even been to the salt water because almost everything was destroyed. So that's why the economy is very agricultural. You've got some freshwater pirates they had a brief run-in with. But right now, they are just, they started out with basic knowledge. Hey, this is what the town of Sandfords is like. This is my family. Because I'm in this family, I am learning this skill because that's what my dad or mother did. And as they are branching out, they're finding new things. So a lot of this we're creating as we go. I'm from Michigan. I'm a University of Michigan fan. So, of course, the evil humans are the Columbans from Iowa, the Ohio, the Ohio football team, Columbus, Ohio. You know, we had to fight with Ohio to maintain control of a better part of the Great Lakes way back when. But anyways, that's just because, you know, what can I do? But depending on what they choose, there are three prime movers in my world that are evil. There is the chaotic evil, which is red slod or slade, whichever way you pronounce it, that has come in from limbo, that is trying to wreak chaos upon the world. So what he's doing is using insects that he can control, giant insects, to take out farming communities, to weaken the supports of the major kingdoms, to make them easier prey when time comes. There is the lawful evil faction, which is the, I haven't even made him yet, but there's a major devil that fell in love with a dryad. The druids said, oh, no, we're not going to let this nature and hell corruption produce offspring. So they got put in opposing stasis cells. But unfortunately, when the asteroid hit, it moved things. Those cells are in contact with each other and are causing a corruption of the soil around it. And that's where the myths of the Yogg have come from. The Yogg creatures are the things that are contaminated by the soil. And then just because, and you might want to plug your ears for this one, John, there's also neutral evil, because that asteroid that crashed was partially controlled and guided by an advanced civilization. So they're going to run into Expedition to the Barrier Peaks at some point if they decide to go that way.
So you are completely trolling me with this world, this Yogg race of sci-fi influence thing. Yeah.
Well, and the Yoggs, this is going to be where the Forest Oracle comes in, because they are going to at some point come across the ancient writings from pre-cataclysmic writings that talk about this devil and dryad that were imprisoned, and the Forest Oracle, which is I'm going to liberally steal from and modify, is going to lead them to how they can correct this problem. Barry, you had a hand raised.
Listen, I reject the fucking idea that Forest Oracle is the worst module ever written. It is, in fact, the greatest module ever written, because it forces you as a GM to take shit and then spin it into gold. So it really will teach you to be a great GM. So
you need to be really, really, really inventive and patient with that piece of
let me see if I can just get my arm out of joint as I.
So yeah, they've had brief contact with a little bit of the chaotic evil side, because the first major obstacle they encountered were giant ants. That forced them to travel about 20 miles from their hometown to another little village that ended up being the cause of the flood, because the ants had mined sapped underneath the giant beaver dams. When those dams collapsed, that surge of water plus all the rains are what took out their village. So they traced the ants back and found the giant walking sticks that could influence them. And in the giant walking stick lair, they found the keystone, which is a three-fingered claw-like thing with flames around it. And they found a place where that will fit. And of course, it's trapped, and they don't know it yet. But they're going to be able to use that to access the first, the next level of encounters with that. And then the lawful evil for the Halloween game that I did, there was a farmer that was trying to make his crops grow bigger and better so he could sell them for more money. And he ran across a trader that sold him some seeds and some fertilizer. That trader actually came from is the guy that's staying at the Golden Grain Inn in Cult of the Reptile.
Merchant.
That's their tie in there. But one of the things that grew when he planted these seeds and stuff was a semi-sentient giant pumpkin that walked on its tendrils, and it had flaming eyes that were upside down triangles that were red but had just a touch of green in the bottom. Anytime they come across something red with that touch of green in it, that is the neutral side of the dryad still trying to survive against the overwhelming onslaught of the devil that's in prison. So when they captured the small cleric in Cult of the Reptile God, she had a brooch with of a snake with ruby eyes. So I just put in those rubies have a tiny fleck of green at the bottom of them. So that's going to give them more impetus to continue following that trail if they want. And if at some point they look into why there are no elves over 800 years old and there are no gnomes whatsoever, even though they've heard stories of them, that's going to lead them to the neutral evil part, because gnomes being gnomes, they tried to get into this spaceship, crashed, and do what they could do with it, and they were all turned into vegapygmies because the ship is in the module. The ship is overrun with vegapygmies. That's all the gnomes, and then the elves were absorbed into the hive mind of the ship. Basically, their brain was read and blanked by the computer, because that's how the ship and the denizens of the ship are trying to learn about the world, is through the knowledge the elves have, because they are the oldest.
So after all this sci-fi barrage you've just put me through, along with your tying me in with the Forest Oracle, this imagination you've got, when I put you in Discord jail tonight, you'll need to use it to escape.
Control Alt Delete. I think that works most of the time.
Yeah. But no, it's obviously, as with Bear, you've put a lot of thought into creating this game, how all these adventures will link together, little details about how the races have developed within your world, and it all helps to create a world that the players can then interact with. But for both yourself and Bear, is that world very much set in stone?
No.
As it is, or how adaptable is it towards the players' actions?
The only thing that's set in stone is the places they have been to and mapped.
Right. Okay.
Everything else, and even that, after when in the Cult of the Reptile God, they had the big battle because they did about everything wrong that you possibly could the first night in town. So there were some allies they had that took them in, and basically they spent a week healing, and in that time the cult is doing other things which aren't necessarily in the adventure itself, because anytime they have downtime, the rest of the world is not having downtime.
Absolutely.
If they ran into some shady people on the road and just kind of let them go, because I think there's only one good person in the party. All the rest of them are neutral, so they didn't really have that big of a qualm with it. But if they don't at least pass on the word of what they have met, the world will react. Are going to come back and cause trouble in their original village. So the
world will react to their actions.
Yes.
I would say when it comes to creating a fantasy game, I'm pretty much the opposite of you two. Certainly the last game I ran, I created about a 20 by 20 in terms of miles area, with 3 settlements in it, settlement names, a couple of individuals, the locations of a few shops and maps, and the names of some gods.
What's it like having that kind of restraint? Is it interesting? Is your life feel fulfilled when you can restrain yourself to that level, sir?
No, but then I started my first session, and I said to the players, "Okay, you these 3 settlements are all that exist in your known part of this world, because you arrived here 18 months, 2 years ago, as part of on refugee ships."
Cool. Where am I from?
You tell me.
Well, I don't know. It's your world. Where am I from? What cultures are available for me to choose? What kind of religions do my people follow? This is why I go into.
You can play as a human or a hobbit. I gave you the gods, and I gave them general areas, general fields of the gods. But I just said to the players, I want to know what tasks your characters have been doing in terms of building up this this little.
So you've done a bit more world design than just a 20-mile by 20-mile area.
I didn't design any more than that to begin with in terms of the map.
No, but just have the world. You know a little bit more about the world, so that way you were refugees. Where are we refugees from?
I said all of that is irrelevant.
But it's not irrelevant.
It's not irrelevant.
My character, I need to know where my character's from. If I'm not from this town, where the hell do I come from? Why am I a refugee? What happened that made me a refugee?
You're basically you were driven out of wherever it was you before by rampaging hordes, which were followed by volcanic eruptions as the gods punished the Eastern world, which was that continent over there. That continent, as far as you're concerned, doesn't exist. This is your world.
Did I grow up on that continent, or was I born on a boat?
I believe it was 80 years after that.
Those sort of things did not matter.
John, that's the thing though. Like, as the players, at least from Bear and me, that makes a huge thing. Because now we're talking about, like, okay, what kind of culture are we coming from?
What I'm coming to, it was for the players to make up.
But what we are looking at you to tell us, what was the world like before? Because there are cultures from there that's been brought over. What inspirations can we pull from? Are we Macedonian? Are we Serbians? Are we from Turkey?
And I sat there and said, "You tell me what you."
Okay. Fine. I'm from a long line of samurai.
There you go. Okay, fine. Yeah.
So now you got to deal with that. But that's the thing, right? So,
that would be irrelevant in the world where they are now, unless they want to play it. Unless they want to play out.
No, I disagree, man.
I'm sorry. I disagree with you there.
I understand what you're going for, and it's very old school, and I appreciate that. But even Greyhawk had some detail from other places, so I could be a Horse Lord of Furiondi, or from the Sheldamar Valley or something, right? So I don't go join your game, not you specifically, but someone's game to develop their world for them. I'm there to develop my character. What's the world like, and I'll make something that fits within it, right?
Basically, I developed the world the land they were now in as they explored.
Okay. Were we born there?
No, none of you were.
So I magically appeared in this world with no history, no backstory, no culture, no nothing?
Apart from the fact that you're all refugees and you fled on boats to this place and you've built this refugee colony. Now you tell me what you've done here, who you've interacted with. And we created the NPCs in that first session. Most of them were created on the fly, fully improvised and named on the fly. That's how the world began, and it's how it began to be fleshed out.
That's fair. I'm just saying it's not my taste, right?
No, but that's how I began that game, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and my players enjoyed it. It gave them a complete free reign.
Sure. No, I get the point. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying for me, it would not scratch my itches.
Well,
this is where this is taste. This is purely down to taste.
100% taste.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, Glenn. Absolutely.
But what I think Bear and I was just going for is, like, when you were telling us this, we were thinking, okay, we want what else is there? Like, what's the background? Why we've been pulled here? Because I'm interested in the refugee side. That's interesting. what's it like, when you've got everyone who is being pulled over there, because you're bringing baggage with you. And that's where I was trying to sort of think, like, okay, well, what are we being brought in here?
Yeah.
Because I have done a similar situation when I did Shadowrun, and I basically made a 3x3 block. And I said to the players, right, you have to pick one or two ethnicities and cultures that dominate this place. And what is it? And my players just went, we are picking Yugoslavian Balkans. And we ran with that. And we then had to set up how this 3x3 block in Seattle was run by, how we had Bosnian, Croatian, Serbs living next to each other, the culture that was set up there, why everyone would respect the babushka, and all of these things that was being built in. But that's because I was putting in a big emphasis on culture and a big emphasis on identity in the Shadowrun world.
And I agree with you on that. And I think that's also what it boils down to, right? Is if you're running a world where you're just going to be plundering dungeons and slaying monsters and taking treasure, then yeah, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. But if you're playing a world where there's going to be a level of, conflict or social discourse or cultural clash, then it does matter, right? I mean, those are the two differences. So I get the impression, based on what we've discussed, John, you're more of a, old school dungeon delving kind of DM. And I get that. And that's cool.
Well, I mean, that campaign, to be honest, there wasn't a lot of that.
What'd they do?
I created a little scenario initially as just like a little precursor. I'd got in my head a few ideas that it was effectively a world which had lain dormant because the existing gods in the world had punished the previous inhabitants for things as yet undefined. But the first scenario was the characters finding evidence that there had been something on that world way before them. And
so it's about them exploring the new continent and discovering that there had been people there, there were cultures there, and they have to encounter them. And
I added, as they explored, I dropped in some cultures. I basically said at the start, there will be things. I said at the start, you can only pick between humans and hobbits in this game because you may encounter other races on this continent, and how you progress in this world depends on how you interact with those other races. And I had other things, little events dropping in, like other ships filled with refugees landing with different cultural expectations. I brought in a little pirate community where a group of ne'er-do-wells had landed 100 or 200 miles up the coast, had found out that others had landed and started raiding. And then I had the idea of dragons being each dragon being a unique avatar representing aspects of human or sentient being personality, and each dragon being a unique ancient being that was essentially, the spirit was immortal, but the body wasn't within the current age within this world. I was getting all these ideas as I was going along.
Yeah, so you're starting from a small point and building outwards, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Building outwards. Yes.
Yeah. That's fine.
But
again, I would be driving you insane by going, well, why are these refugees that are arriving annoying to me? What is the cultural difference between the culture I come from and them? Who are they? What culture are they from? Like that's
we'd established the characters' personalities in that first hour was just us role playing the characters to learn. I wanted the characters to the players to role play their characters as they wanted to with a free slate, and then I reacted to that by dropping in individuals that would be interesting, and some of those individuals they created themselves. I said, okay, you're doing what have you been doing for the last 18 months? He said, well, when the building of the stockades has been sorted out, I have tried to rally a town militia tried to gather a town guard together. So I'm trying to take control of the guard duty.
Cool.
And I said, but he says, but there is someone over and above me. All right, okay, there's someone over and above you. Where's he likely to be at 10:30 in the morning? I said to the player. And the player went, probably in the inn because he's sick of my nonsense. Okay, so that created a guard captain who'd got a problem with alcohol.
Yeah.
But the player created that character, that NPC by suggesting that.
Yeah,
And
and
I thought that was a really good
that.
idea.
Nothing wrong
That's a
with
really
that.
good
That's what you
idea.
guys want. That's awesome.
I mean, that campaign was a little bit of an experiment for me. Because before that, I'd been quite anal with regarding world details. I wanted something to develop organically and see how it went, and it worked. I quite enjoyed it.
Cool. Nothing wrong with that.
But I did get into the detail. More and more details appeared as the game went along, but I was reacting to what the players were doing in creating a lot of those details rather than plonking them in front of them.
Sounds good. All right. May I start sharing?
Yeah, go on.
All right. So, I would love to have bears detailed when it came to maps, because at the moment I simply just go on the internet and I steal away because I have no shame. So my second edition campaign is based off a what's it called? It's basically a world that's been made by another DM that he's publicized for everyone to use, and I've taken it and I just needed basically points. But from there, I've gone out and said, right, here are the cultures of every single country, and you're just zooming a bit out. I've basically gone, right, this over here, that I'm gonna have that be England, France, top English, bottom French, united under a single monarch, divided that into 4 dukedoms, and then sort of tally it down from there. So I started from the very top, build it all the way down, but then I also made sure that there were cultural differences. So when the players have traveled from Confluence, which is where they're based, down and along all the way till they came to around here to Limestone, they began noticing cultural differences, changes in how how things are being perceived, what kind of hierarchies and the expectations of different social classes are, because, well, things quickly change when you move from one dukedom to another because there are different rules. Equally so, I made sure that I looked into, attention, like what's the daily life like? Where's the players most likely going to be found when they are back in the city of Confluence? Yes, they might be meeting at the tavern, but who runs the tavern? When I decided pretty early on that it was going to be a level 7 thief that's looking to retire himself away, and he's become a fence. He's gone the route of the the complete thief's handbook of being a fence. So that respectful local inman who has got everything on the up and up is actually the middleman between the gangs of High Castle, who does a lot of the seedier stuff, and the dwarven cartels of Farnham, who work with their mine excavations and illegal smuggling of gems and precious metals. And both of them need each other, but neither one of them are able to deal directly. So in enters that character. And all of this is what I've then started adding in. Who are the characters? What was the Baron like? The Baron at the time, he was an old man who was, on his last few days, and was very much just leaning back, while all the other major NPCs had to have active roles. So the details that I go out of my way to do is where I see the players going to be at the most. I worked with the players to basically say, right, you come from different backgrounds. One player said he wanted to be a nobleman, but he's decided he wants to come from the Empire of Drakish, also known as the Necromancer Empire. And I sat down to him and I explained to him, you are a nobleman from an empire where the social contract is all nobility funnels their wealth up to the emperor. In exchange, the emperor funnels protection downwards, meaning if shit goes sideways and you decide to send up the flare. There's some serious cavalry that will come for you, but the expectations are when they call for you, you do not question. You just jump over a mountain, even if they don't tell you how high it is there. You have to jump, and that's what they're having to deal with. So I've basically worked in what the culture was like, where the players started. I asked the players, where in the world are you coming from? Explain to them in very no more than a few bullet points what the cultures are like there, what the expectations are, and then how they might have found their way over into this place, so that they had something to work with and something to draw from. And then these are the sort of details that I've given to my players. I mean, I have gone on and made documents and brief histories and an outline of the various what's called gods and their interactions. The humans, dwarven, elven. But I've always kept it in the sense of like, there is more to this, but this is the general knowledge that you guys have. And for the players who then say, this is what I want to focus on, that's where I expand it out, because they would know more of that side of it than the rest. So that's the sort of details that I try to go into. And again, I steal liberally, and I often open up my Pendragon books and I start going into some of the local economics, because you know what? Local economy is important. There isn't a jeweler where the players live, so most of the jewels they either have to tap into the criminal underworld, which is dangerous, because in my world, gnomes are the Venetian princes. They run the merchants. They are the ones who handle blood diamonds. And because they've got different hierarchies within the gnome world, you've got the ones who do the dealing. You've got the wizards. The wizards are very much like, well, we specialize in illusions. You won't know that we're there. You won't know what's going to attack you. And that's what they do. So
Daniel, you catching flies there? Hey! Hey!
Yes, I'm sorry. It's Mr. Pegasus. I've sent him to sleep again. I'm going on about economy and taxes and.
Well, Sax is talking about the economies and all that. The thing that my players fear more than any monster they've met is the money changer.
Oh yes. Oh, when I played The Witcher 3, the moment I found out that there were different currencies, I was just thinking, yes, currency exchanges.
Well, when they went to Baytown, which is the big city. That way they could actually find some people to train them and whatnot. And they use wooden tokens for money. So it wasn't even a matter of, hey, it's a gold piece, but it's from somewhere else. Oh, no, you have to buy totally different currency.
Well, see, what I do is basically, so in my world, in the West, in the western part of the continent where they are, there's a thing called the Regency. And the Regency was basically in charge of the entire area for the longest time. And now it's falling apart as different kingdoms are declaring themselves independent. But the Regency still controls the minting, right? They still have all the access to the mints and stuff like that. So they've created a brass currency. But certain things have happened, like the Catholic Church of the region has gotten their hands on a gnomish printing press. So they've started creating this thing called Holy Script, which is their currency that they're using. That people don't like. People are outside of the Catholic realm. People are afraid of using it because they believe the Catholics have put some sort of magic on it that's going to be able to listen to you and all this kind of stuff. So there's like almost a superstition building up about it. But here's an interesting thing. I always, whenever we have these conversations, and I've had a lot of them in the past couple of years here on YouTube, I always see people in the chat talking about how, you overwhelm your players and they have too much to read. You know what? I'm going to say it. And I'm going to say it bluntly, and I'm going to say it factually. If I'm going to put this much work into running a game for you, the least you can do as a player is at least learn where your character is from in the history of that area. Yes. And that's something John has done in my campaign. John could not tell you anything about the Asturian Empire beyond they exist, But boy, oh boy, does he know what Palabria is about. He knows what where he comes from is about. And as a result, he folded aspects of that into his character's backstory that have made a very interesting character and given other characters, like the young fellas down here, bailiwicks and sticks that they can use to basically roleplay, leading to him making the nasty comment last time of, I was actually born a noble, unlike you who bought your way in. You know what I mean? And taking that shot at him. But John used something from the world and from the background and from the area his character's from to bring that to his character. So when I see players going, I don't want to read your backstory, well, then I don't want you to play in my game. It's as simple as that. If you don't want to take the time to learn about the campaign world I'm running for you because it's too much of an impetus on you to read something, then you're not a player who's going to enjoy my world. So we can just part as friends and not have to play together. That's simple.
Yeah, but I think that's as well, the session 0 of, again, the DM being transparent of, hey, listen, I'm going to throw you into a world that I put a lot of effort into, and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I mean, to me, when I ran my Curse of Strahd, for example, I went up and I pulled out my Van Richten's guide. And I physically handed that out when they had come to the point of where you have played in, Ravenloft for so long. Here is some actual knowledge for you. I handed that out, and out of 5 players, 1 player actually read the book.
Yeah.
We have a month between each session. Everyone were given, a PDF copy of it, and a physical one was being floated around. Only 1 person read it, and that told me, okay, this 1 player will put in the time. I will give them the information because they enjoy it. Everyone else, fine. That's you get what you put in.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That's what I make clear. You put in the effort, you put in the interest. I will feed that back to you, and that's why, like with my 2nd edition group, one of the players is just like me. I sat down, and when he reached level 8, 9 as a thief, he gets his thieves. Then we rolled up all of his characters, all of his henchmen, and I've been dripping them in throughout the campaign. He's been building up a barging logistics company and a part-time warehouse that all of these thieves work in, but they're not just based around the docks and the ships. Some of them actually work in the agricultural fields. And the other players were like, well, why are they doing that? It's like, well, surprise, surprise, the big commerce in this region is agriculture. You got to know who the movers and shakers are amongst the other landowners. And landowners have a high sway when it comes to the Baron's courts. So that made a lot of sense. It actually meant he got information from the grassroots, and he had higher echelons who was also spying in the Baron's courts themselves. So he was spread out like a spider because of how he basically set up, how he and I worked in all of his NPCs into the campaign.
I just want to refer to Nerd's comment here. Regarding Bear's game,
I was thinking that too, John.
One of the reasons why my character is a little bit insular, and I made him how I did, is I'm terrible at reading great long rafts of information. I focused on what mattered to a knight of Palabria, and that was it. And that was 1 or 2. That was only a couple of pages, probably, but more than 1 or 2. About 3 or 4 pages. That's all it was. Just 3 or 4 pages of concise information, and that gave me enough to work with to create something that works with the world.
And I would say this statement that no one's going to read that is absolute horseshit. And I'm sorry, Nerd, to take that stance with you, but I've been running games for a long time, and I've had dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of players, and I'd say at least 90% of them will read the stuff that's presented to them because they want to be a part of the world, because they know the kind of world I run. Now, if you're just doing murder hobo shit, I get it. If you're just doing that, then why read the back world? It makes no goddamn sense. But my games aren't murder hobo games. My games aren't that kind of game. My games are very political. They're very cultural. They're about the people. They're about the world. And if your characters aren't invested in the world, then you're not going to enjoy the game, because as the world's falling to shit around you and you're the ones who are there to save it, you'll have no investment in it. You'll have no care. And that's not a good thing. Now, is that for everybody? Of course not. But
my bare bones world as well was a little bit of a reaction to what other things I was running at the time. That world, I let the players create the details, because the other thing I was running around that time, which I'm currently running again, was that.
Uh,
And if you want something that's absolutely jam-packed with fine details and background information, I don't think there's any other campaign book I've encountered for any other system, apart from maybe Arnor for MERP, which I'm also running at the moment. So I've really made a rod for my own back by running those two at the same time. So having that there, it was a bit of a palate cleanser for me.
yeah, well, yeah, because you were dealing with like heavy mythological worlds with lots of deep lore. I ran a Lord of the Rings campaign one time, and 2 of the players out of the 6 were big time Tolkien heads, and it fucking forced me to have to get deeper into the Tolkien lore so I could keep up with them, you know. But Oscar has his hand up. We should pay attention to Sax.
I was just going to say, like, should we let DK slide out? Because
Yeah, I mean, this is getting a little cruel. Maybe we should remove him.
Yeah.
Give his seat to someone else if someone else wants to come in.
Daniel, have a
No.
nice sleep. When you wake up, when
Let us
you're
know.
refreshed, let us know, because
We can all sing Mr. Sandman to him or something if it'll help.
Daniel has quite literally a shitty job.
Yes.
With horrible hours, which involve him getting up very, very early in the morning. So, good night, Dan. If you don't come back for the end of the stream, I'll see you Friday.
We love you, Dan.
Now, Bear, what kind of character or what kind of player reactions do you get from all that? And the reason I ask is in my group,
Yeah.
I had an encounter that they had to use a little bit of intelligence to try to solve it, and they didn't. And because they didn't solve it right, some of the townsfolk had to go back and do it the right way later. And I had one player that was just up in arms about that. Oh, you thought there's only one way this could possibly get solved, and you took that out against us, and then he quit and didn't come back anymore.
Okay, bye. That's my attitude on that. That's always been my attitude on that. Someone who wants to throw a little baby tantrum because things didn't go their way, bye. See you next time. But how players react, I'll tell you, the experience I've had over the years of running campaigns is players will look at the background of the world, they'll look at the story or the history of the world or the lore of the world, and they'll find something that they like, and they'll go, oh, what are these guys all about? And then they'll want to know more. And then the beauty of when I started this world was there was maybe a paragraph about those guys. And then as me and that player started working, we started growing the part of it, and then it became a thing for their character. So, for example, in my world, there's an organization called the Kalenites, and they're basically neutral scribes who wander the world recording everything they see. That literally comes from one of my players going, what's this Kalenite thing? And I went, I don't know, it's just this idea I have for these neutral scribes. He goes, I want to play one of those. And as a result, between he and I and in that campaign, we worked out more and more and more of the lore of who they were. So it grew over time to where now I have this fully fleshed out thing. There are tons of parts of my world that are just a name and a paragraph currently.
Yeah.
And no one's ever made a character from, no one's ever traveled to, no one's ever done anything. It's kind of like when you take George R.R. Martin's larger world that they did, that atlas of the world where they did Essos and Westeros, and he has all these towns where he has like one word about them almost, you know? Well, if ever a player wants to be from that place, we'll flesh it out. Yeah. If they ever go to that place, I'll flesh it out. But I have a vague idea of what it is, just for color, just for flavor, just for a little bit. You know what I mean?
It's not unlike what Nerds.
No, it's not. It's not unlike what that says. But I still need a base campaign to work from. So I ran Over the Wall and Beyond the Wall and Other Adventures. It's an amazing game. It's a fantastic game. And in it, they have this great system where you and the players will build the town together, right? And then you build the town out from there. They add stuff to the town, and then you have a town for them to adventure from. Well, then they did this advanced or expansion book, which was more about going off from the town and eventually leaving the town and going into the larger world. And that had a whole sequence in it. So what I did was I handed my players a map digitally that had A to whatever down one side and then a number across the top or something like that. And they rolled dice, and they each got a segment, a square. And then they rolled more dice, and they got something that was in that square. It could have been a town, could have been a mysterious event. And then they made that stuff up. And then those were places they could always go to and see an adventure in. And I thought that was really well done for that type of world building. It's really fun. But if I have my druthers, I'm creating a world. and then players are coming into it and bringing that world to life. And that's what matters, is that the players bring the world to life, but only when they invest in the world or they put the time in the world. If you just want beer and pretzels, you just want to dungeon delve, you just want to do that stuff, totally awesome. Have a great time, but I don't play D&D anymore. You know what I mean?
No, I completely agree, because I always come into my games with the idea of I prepare for 100%. Maybe 10% will be spotted by the players, but I have got 90% of things prepared and fleshed out. And I'm very happy with that, because I know at the back of my head I am building up and up and up. I mean, hell, when I was running a Warhammer 40,000 campaign, what I ended up doing was that I would take the story that I had from one group and I would center them around the same area. Then the next group that I would play with would be around the same area. So you would have this like upbuilding not canon or world that was being influenced by historical campaigns, so that they would always be hearing like, oh yeah, this happened over here on this situation, and this happened over here on that with this event. So you've got all this ongoing, and I quite like that. It's something that I still try to do with the number of my campaigns, at least if I can center them in the same world. And again, to me, it's I enjoy the fleshing out. I enjoy sitting down and going like, okay, what's happening behind the scenes? And I've shown on a multiple of times, my faction turns and how I do that. But to me, it's a great deal of fun, and it means I can keep it organic.
How far out of your comfort zone then was our now infamous game?
Well, I wouldn't say it's out of my comfort zone. It's just what it made me have to do was just be a lot more creative in about what do I do, what's the focus on, and where you guys were taking things, because you more like there were times where you thought you were way off the rails, but I had kept you pretty close to where I wanted you to go. You just decided that rather than going in a straight line, you were going to go up and down like a roller coaster, but I got you to the same destination once I figured the group out.
Just not in the manner you ever predicted.
Well, no, like I said, like it's not about you going up and down like a roller coaster and swirling around. I mean, that's at the end of the day, I get you where I need you to go. It's just it went from being, oh, this is chaotic and cats, to no, I know that if I throw the catnip out this way, you're all gonna go scrambling to it. Some of you might be jumping over chairs, some of you might be crawling underneath my feet. Don't know, but you're all gonna end up at the same place. I just
and some of us were wearing chickens on our heads.
Yeah, what I've told other players is that sometimes it's just about jingling keys. I need to figure out how. Thank you, Bear. I need basically what I do as a DM. Then this is my personal style. I sit and I analyze the players. I sit and I start picking apart. What makes them tick. What are they like as a person? What can I do and say, and how do they react? And the moment I gather up all of this information like a sponge, I immediately find out like, okay, if I do X, this is the reaction from this player. If I do Y, player A will react this way, but player B will do this. And that allows me to start create a group dynamic that I work on and I play on, that will allow me to then insert information that I know will be tailored to that group. But that's because I don't have a degree in psychology, unlike someone else here. Yes, I'm looking at you, Alaka. But at least, I've just been picking this up because I've been playing and running so many games over the years, and I've been paying attention to what is it that, because I run and I play a very specific way, and I don't call myself a good player, but it's because I know that my flaws and my needs as a player is not the kind of needs that many DMs are willing to put up with.
I will say that my standard style of play fits very much to your detailed and precise style of world building. I love it when a DM puts all these sort of details in. I like a game of Call of Cthulhu when a DM has got all these handouts and things to give us that we can find, details all there, to make everything feel very tactile.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but
and-
like this is something you did in my game as well, which was the whole thing of like the Queen of Palabria has begun wearing red lately for some reason, and people think it's because she's trying to cast herself in the Pendrick cycle prophecy of being the woman in red. And you took that and went, and my family were the merchants who brought the red dye into the country to provide her with this red clothing, and as a result, we've been jumped up by it. That's amazing. That is a player investing in the world. And I love that about your character. And I love that about your thought process. So I can get why you would love what Sax does, because it's you're the type of person that will feed on that. And it's a really cool thing. Trust me. I mean, it's awesome. Now there's a young fella, I'm not going to name any names as I point down below me here, who hasn't asked me shit about his religion, his culture, or anything else. And that worries me because I sometimes wonder if he's just, winging it. Hi, Iman. Just trying to drag you into the conversation.
Hey, there's an element of winging it, definitely, because it sort of goes off what you say as well as the world that you've built and stuff. But definitely with the conversations that I had with my father, it was something that I had to consider, because I know that we don't have the same belief system, and I believe much more on my mother's side.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously he's not fond of that.
Well, that organically grew out of the role playing mode, right? So that was kind
That's
of
right,
fun.
yeah. Because obviously I didn't read every page of the 300 odd thing, but I did read the pages that were good for the religion and the little handouts that you did and the OCC and stuff. And based on, obviously the role that I got for my heritage and stuff, I was like, right, I'm pretty sure I know how to play this guy.
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? And then as a result of that, through role playing, the character became more alive, the world became more alive, the events became more alive. And now, 3 sessions in, it's led to a confrontation between your character and Devere, wherein in the first session your character was looking up to him as a knight that you could learn from, and now 3 sessions in he's going, who is this asshole? At
first it was like, oh, a fellow knight among peasants, right? Yeah, we'll get along and blah blah blah. And then throughout the sessions it's like, this guy's really up his own arse for no reason.
Especially given your culture and your religion is all about, there is no separation between nobility and peasantry. They're all people. They're all God's people. So as a result, you have a responsibility to treat them well, to be respectful to them, and understand that they make the things that allow you to go out into the world and bring God's will out there. So like completely diametrically opposed ideas of what knighthood is as well, which is really fun to see.
I used the dice rolls as well to try and get that a little bit of one-upmanship on you as a reaction to it. Because you failed that fear check, that horror check.
The horror check, yeah. So
I tried to drive that in at one point. I stood and fought, and you were a coward. And it all just came from the dice roll.
And I just casually reminded you that, hey, I'm fine. You nearly died.
yeah. And you're actually noble, and I bought mine. Yeah.
So my character is normally quite stoic, but when Gerard made that comment, it cracked my armor a little bit, and I was like, all right, rich coming from you, mate.
Good. Well, Andy has asked us a question a little while back that I've starred. Sure. I hope Andy's still here.
If there is a I don't know,
very
detailed word, how do you inform the players of that detail? Reading and conversation.
I'm sorry, but like I've said this before. Read the books cover to cover to get into the hobby. There is no way around it. You got to understand those rules. When you get into the game, sure, you might not need to know the history and the insights of the country that is, half a continent away from you, but you got to know your own. I'm sorry. We all went to school. We were all taught the history of our own nation. Why would you not have been given at least verbally a rundown of that? Unless you are that much of a down to the dirt peasant that you weren't told shit about your own little piece of land, so that you weren't told the glory of your own lords and the knight that is protecting you, whom you have fealty to, by the way, you dirty person.
And why those assholes over the hills who have the exact same legends and stories about themselves are pieces of shit because of this one thing that happened this one time back in the day. So fuck those guys.
Exactly. And they've got the wrong colors on their kilts. So let's round up the guys. for a night raid. Come on, let's go get them.
I mean,
Now,
I think
for
I've
me-
already made it obvious how in my game, how I inform the players of that the details. I didn't make a particularly detailed word to start with, but I made just enough of the bare bones that I could work with it. And I run it was quite a low fantasy initial setting, so I could easily improvise based on what I know of history and the time that it was all sort of set-ish. And so how do I inform the players of the detail? I make them up as required.
I'm kind of in the middle there. I mean, a lot of my game is like a big fancy Rorschach test. I put things in there that if they find and figure out, then their characters have an epiphany. They gain a little bit greater understanding of how the world works. And to be honest, I mean that's when I see the sparkle in a player's eye when they solve a puzzle, when they figure something out. That's what gets them excited. That was one of the things farther down on our topic list. But for me, when they realize that something is a clue or a hint, that's what does it for me. It's like, all right, you are actually, putting yourself. You're not just looking at a character sheet and drinking Mountain Dew. You're paying attention to the game and trying to get something out of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To answer Andy's current question, if it's all homebrew, do you provide a primer, a Bible, or session zero it? Yes.
Yeah.
All three.
I mean, I wouldn't call my thing a Bible, but I've got basically here's the knowledge that should be capturing your end. Like I've got broke down for each kingdom. I haven't filled out all the city states, but I've got the major things, and then the gods, the relationship.
Would it be fair to call it an idiot's guide?
An introductionary guide. I wouldn't call it an idiot because there are still holes in there that I'm looking at it right now. I'm going like, oh yeah, I need to go back and actually do some more work on it. But it's a good introductionary that will go like, this country is based off like Arabian background, and if you want to do something like that, then pick this. This one's based off Hindi and what's it called, like Hindi and caste system. You gotta have this sort of mindset when you go in for that. Here's another one where if you want to be a half something, like a half orc or half something else, you're gonna come from this country because that's where you will be accepted, so on and so on. So there's a little bit for everyone, so that there's something that at least catches you in, and you go like, I like the sound of this. Tell me more. Go on, Bear.
And I bake contradictions into the world. Because if we look at our own history, there's contradictions throughout it, right? We know that from studying history, that there's like people argue over what really happened, and well, no, actually, and no, well, really, and there's all. So I throw that in, and when players find those contradictions, makes me so happy. It's like
I actually had a player read through my introduction guide, and he came back to me and went, Oscar, you wrote this in there. I went, yeah. But you also wrote this in there. It's like, yes. And he was like, they're not compatible anymore. It's like, that's correct. And he went, oh, that's so good. That's human arbitrary. Because I had basically written, if you are a slave or a slaver, you are killed in this kingdom because they don't believe in it. And the best way to free you is by killing you because you've lost your soul as a slave. But the same kingdom employs serfdom. So the player was sitting there like, but it's just slavery. But with extra steps, it's like, no, they belong to the land. Not
One
the
of
person.
my players in my my home game noticed something about a month or two ago. He's like, wait a minute. This historical event contradicts with this historical event, and I kind of get the impression like something's missing here. And I'm like, oh, do you? Do you get the idea that perhaps a part of history has been erased? I wonder why these groups would do that.
History's written by the winner.
Exactly.
Or to
Nice Rick and Morty reference there,
set themselves
Saxius.
up for something else, right?
Thank you.
Which Rick and Morty reference was that?
It's
That just sounds like slavery with extra steps.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, no, I did that deliberately because I thought it was a funny reference to that, and equally so, it is a fun nod to the European history that we abolished this thing of slavery, but we kept this other thing going for a very long time. It's like, yeah, that's true, but not to get into that. But like having details like that in there, and I've also got other things like necromancy in my world. Overall, it is banned across almost the entire world except for 2 countries. One is ruled by a red dragon and is basically going, I don't care, necromancers, come here, try your trades, just work for me. The other one is the Empire of Necromancers, who've looked at the red dragon, gone, no, we hold monopoly over this. And the 2 of them are now at war, of course. But there is a huge, like, there's been so many like things back and forth about like whether or not necromancy should be allowed, and it's been a very prevalent it's been a prevalent topic that's been brought back, and the players have more or less just landed on the side that it's a useful school as long as you don't use it wrong. But there are a lot of contradictions even within what I've given out to them, because some of the mages claim that in order for you to raise the dead in my world, you need to take a soul and trap it into the dead body, which means it suffers. And then that creates the moral dilemma of, do you do that?
No.
Would you risk a potential former being being trapped in a dead body and to suffer until it is dispelled or destroyed?
Yeah.
So that's I throw things in there that makes it different. Go on, Bear.
So I have 2 evil major religions in my world. There's the Black Church and the Infernal Temple.
Mm-hmm.
And the Black Church is much more what you were talking about to a certain extent. It's a church of rot and degeneration. They, the worm kings and the worm priests and all this type of stuff.
Yep.
And it's very, very. And then there's the Infernal Temple, which are basically Satanists, for lack of a better term, and they believe that their god Godan is the son of essentially the devil, and it's going to. And they fucking hate the Black Church. So in one of the campaigns, signs of the Black Church coming back are starting to show up. So they got all called to a council. And this Templar of the Infernal Temple was there. And they're all like, what is this evil person doing here? And she's like, I hate the Black Church. We want to help you destroy them. And they're like, no, we can't work with you. And it's like,
yes.
And that's fun,
Oh, it was great. My players had to basically sit and basically mediate between the current kingdom that they're in, which has made hard stance of like, you're not allowed to be a slave, or you're not allowed to have slaves, you're not allowed to be a slave. And the player who's a nobleman of the Empire of Necromancer had sent out his help flare, which meant that they were coming to help him. And the Empire, that they are the equivalent of like the USA or Russia back in the Cold War era. They're scary. When they come in raw brute force, and they don't really care much for the international politics. So the players had to mediate that these Drakesians couldn't just come in with necromancers, and whoever came in couldn't be slave owners, because the Eridonians would have to hang them by their own principles. And there was just the Empire just sat there and went, why should we listen to kingdoms that are lower than us? Why should we listen to those who fear the Red Dragon when we face the Red Dragon? I was just like, oh boy, that's.
I love the idea of opposing evil factions and typically good people having to possibly make that deal with the devil.
Yes.
Isn't that right, Iman? Isn't that something could that possibly
I was just about to say.
Could that possibly be happening in Call of Cthulhu? Perhaps?
No. It wasn't, not in our session. I bloody hope not. But you did say it happened in your previous session, didn't you?
Well, could it possibly be? I think something you learned last session is there are more people interested in this artifact than just you and this other enemy you've encountered.
Yes, there was the first faction, and there seems to be another faction at work now.
Yes.
I'll come down in a few.
Dum.
Yeah, and that was found out in the last session, wasn't it? Yes.
I'm thinking it's more a premise of the lesser of two evils. Like, is it really worth that sort of thing? The sacrifice for the outcome, for the does the risk outweigh the reward at this point? Because I don't think it does.
Well, it's for you, your little group, to decide.
Yeah, but it's not up to me. I'm 1/4 of the decision.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, if you've ever watched Supernatural, you know that sometimes you have an angel and a demon in the same party because they're all working for the same game outcome.
True.
Yep. Oh no, the best was when there were some of them who thought the Infernal Temple was the Black Church, so they wound up just offending the Templar by comparing her to the Black Church. She's like, what are you talking about? They worship death. We worship freedom. It's like, it was so fun. So much fun.
No, it's good, but these are the sort of things. I mean, it's one of the reasons for why one of my players love Warhammer, because there's so much moral ambiguity. There's so many different layers you can go into, and there's so many things you can build upon. And again, I agree. There's while my current second edition campaign was built on the premise of good versus evil, we have brought in the moral ambiguity with the players working alongside the empire of necromancers, because they're facing the Yuan-Ti, and everyone has just done the math and gone, well, the Yuan-Ti are a terrible evil, and necromancy is an evil, but it is a lesser evil than snake people that are willing to commit eco-terrorism to break through heightened global warming.
I mean, that sort of thing was in the lore of Greyhawk. I mean, Halakar's favorite entity in Greyhawk, Tharizdun. I know very little was written about him to start with, but they developed a little bit of lore which suggested that all the gods had combined together to make sure Tharizdun was expunged as far away as possible, because he represented more of a threat than anything else. And you're a bit of a fan of his, aren't you, Halakar?
Yeah, he was the big god that all the little gods had to get together to keep out. Yeah, I think, I don't remember which one of the Cthulhu Mythos books it was, but they talk about how all the tiny things that humans worship basically make enough of a non-porous barrier that the big things out there can't get through easily. So what the humans are worshiping is so minute in power compared to all the outer things, and that's kind of the same way I looked at the whole Tharizdun is, you've got great, powerful, major deities, but they don't stand a chance by themselves.
No. They've all had to get together to.
So Saint Cuthbert and Euse had to shake hands for a little bit and do some work together.
Yep. And all of this, it generates conflict. And after all, conflict is the heart of a good role-playing game.
Well, you would think.
Exactly. A good story hinges around some form of conflict. And there we go.
What are they saying in literature? There are 4 types of conflict: man versus nature, man versus self, and I don't remember what the 4th one is.
Man versus woman.
We're never going to win that, so I don't even count that as a conflict.
Yeah,
Yes. If you like a bit of Greyhawk, David's your man. Hello, David. Nice to see you.
I love Greyhawk, and that's why I have absolutely no use for anything Forgotten Realms.
David has dissected a lot of the official material and offered his own perspectives on it and how to use it.
Which blog?
Yes, give us the blog.
Yeah. If you shill your blog, David, shill your blog.
Did you summon him by using the word Greyhawk like you summoned me by saying Cthulhu?
It's all good.
I thought the word Tharizdun 3 times and David appeared. That's worrying.
That's like saying Excel 3 times and you see me crawling out from underneath the shutters going, hello.
So I'm gonna do a selfless shill here then. Speaking of Greyhawk and world building and all that, the Gary Gygax's world builder thing on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Is they've got 9 of their 10 stretch goals met. They've got 1 more to go, and it is just going to be a wealth of knowledge that you can steal from.
So
I've looked at it, and I simply
It's expensive.
with the UK Games Expo coming up, a trip to Canada, and the fact that I have decided to customize a gaming PC with a considerable degree of future proofing in it, that's my budget wiped out for the next 12 months.
And I also saw they're putting up a monument to Gary Gygax in Library Park in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin.
I
It's
saw
got
that
him
as well.
Sitting
Yes,
at the big game table. At the top of the game table is actually the map from the hardest level of Castle Greyhawk.
Mm.
That looks like it's going to be really cool.
Yeah, I saw that news. A little note. I mean, we've got Andy in chat at the moment. That video I did the other day about the pre-generated characters in the Against the Giants adventures. The blog that I found that had got all the research into the names, it was one of Andy's mates who wrote that blog.
Hmm.
And it was complete random. I didn't know. Andy only told me after I'd done the video that he knew the guy who wrote that blog, and he blogs on that sort of thing on a weekly basis. So I just thought that was a little bit
Small world, eh?
A small world, very interesting. Yes. Anyhow, where was we? David, if you'd like to just put in a link to your blog. I don't have it handy on this computer. It's on my other computer.
Right.
So,
well, maybe going back onto the topic, sometimes players will come up with ideas that, in the heat of the session, you might go, "Oh, yes, that's nice."
oh yeah,
Because there's been more than one occasion where I've had a player go like, "Well, what is this like?" You know, like one player came up with the idea that he didn't want to come from a middle class background as an adventurer. He wanted to come from the lowest aspect. So I did some research, and we basically agreed that he was one of the knackers, one of the undertakers, and that basically meant that I had to read into what that kind of environment was like. But it opened up a very different world for him because, well, surprise, surprise, the lowest class of people are often ignored and treated as though they aren't there, which means they overhear things. And they will have access to maybe not the most savory things, but they will certainly do something, and they will be able to help you with other things because they're a very tight-knit community. But these are that's one example of where the player just went like, well, I want to do this, and it opened up a very different scenario and opened up different options for the players to suddenly have. I mean, I take that all of you. I also do similar things. If a player, either in the middle of a session or between sessions, ask questions that you go, I didn't think about that yet.
absolutely. And that's pretty much what my bare bones start of a campaign wanted to sort of engender from the players. I wanted them to feel like they were helping with the creation of the details, and they came up with all sorts of ideas in that first hour that I factored into the game over the following few months. I love doing that. I love doing that.
No, definitely.
You play. I mean, why limit yourself to just one imagination when creating that world? If you've got a table with five gamers there, you've got 5 more potentially fertile imaginations, and as long as they are mature and engaged with the world setting, they can give you all sorts of constructive input.
I very much agree. I mean, maybe just to point to my Shadowrun game, I mean, that was a absolute wealth because actually, no, I'm gonna maybe do something different here. I've got a different thing that I can share here. because I also have a 5th edition game where I've turned around and said, right, you've all traveled to new lands. This is just a map I've made for it, and I made them all travel over. And I said, right, we're now all building as a part of the session 1. We are building the fort. This is the fort. We're all arriving in. This is where we are. Who are the top? Let's make 4 characters. These are the top people in the fort. Who are they? What do they do? And let's build in the impact of this. And this has helped out to shape what kind of fort that they are in and what the purpose of it is. So we started with the leader, who was, we just named him Commander Froy, a half elf who has got it's his ambition to make this expedition work because his retirement depends on it. So to him, he's driven to make it work, and he's got to make sure this settlement works. It's getting set up, commerce will be established, and they can start carving something out to themselves. The players have had to go out and do expeditions. They've had to do tasks, explorations, and all these other things to establish this fort and the dominion of this new land, while also learning what the current ecology is like. And that's been very interesting because they've had to ask questions to the locals. They've had to read. They've had to pick up books, study, even go out and acquire new magical spells so that they can decipher what they are about. And they're learning piece by piece that they have actually landed on a continent that is undergoing a cyclical conflict between the eldritch god of Dagon and the fairy world of the Feywild, with the water coming and trying to take the land, and the land having to fight back. And they're finding themselves, being embroiled in this, with the concept being that in a few more in-game months' time, they're going to start seeing some unusually aggressive storms coming about, signaling that next wave of attacks will be coming towards the land. But that's what they're all having to do. So they're now having to travel out, and they've discovered down here in the south that there is a circle actually of druids who are in allegiance with the Feywild, and they're trying to keep some other shenanigans that are happening down here from spilling over. But that's helping me keep specific areas for different parts of the world, its history, and the events there. But a lot of what's happening in the city or in the fort itself has been shaped by the players talking about projects that they've been building on, characters that they've helped insert, as well as their own influences and the character types that they've brought over to the fort.
So, you say the characters they've inserted, are those their own characters, or are they helping create NPCs?
So I have given them 4 NPCs that they inserted and they created, right, where I basically said, right, you've got 4 NPCs that we need to create. However, each one of those NPCs can only work on one thing. And that means that you're now going to be losing resources. So they have a cartographer who will help them, which means I am allowing them to see parts of the map whenever they're getting information, because every time they come back to the fort and they tell the cartographer, she maps out their maps, and then that gets updated consistently so they can always see where they go. And as long as they come back, because the way I've built it on Roll20, they can move their tokens around, but when they move them back, they forget everything that there ever was until they come back to the cartographer, because I can see where they've been, so I can unhide it. So they will then permanently expand out their map as they go around. They've got a what's it called? One of the players knows me too well and decided that they want to insert an overworked desk clerk, who then helps them make sure that they've got consistent trade, which is important because the players are realizing they actually need a lot from the old kingdoms and from the old principalities. When you're out on the frontier, you might be able to survive with the potatoes in the ground and the harvest that you can get from it, but you still need replacement for iron because there's no mines. You still need replacement tools because you might have a forge, but unless you start melting down your current iron supplies, that's not a good idea. And you're also going to be needing new seeds and other supplies, not to mention people. You want to attract people to come there.
See, when I'm putting a world together, my mind does instinctively think like that in terms of how is this world going to work? How is it going to function? How is it going to interact with itself?
Yep.
My biggest problem in the long term is basically that old thing called gamer ADHD. How many projects do we start and not finish?
Well,
That's why I bring all my projects together into an ultra world.
Yeah.
Well, it's why I pick the ones that are key. So I pick a handful, no more than 5 things. They're always going to be consistent, and they're going to, like, whatever the players are going to be doing, something has to bring them back around these 5, because that's what it's going to be centered around. If I can't bring them back, then that's gone. If I can't use it, then I'm not going to be putting effort into it because I've got to stay focused. So I've got to have key things like my 2nd edition game. They're in Confluence. They've got a big broil that's been happening that was orchestrated by an unknown entity. Turns out they're the UNT. There were issues going on between the kingdom and external forces that was been orchestrated by a number of other people, so on and so on. So I've kept it centralized around the community of Confluence, the players influencing the world, and the world churning over as events taking place. So that way we've not had to go, 150 miles to the east to go raid a dungeon, and then 250 miles south, and then so on. So because that's too far and wide for me. I want to keep it centered around an area with the intent for the players to invest into the community, into the culture, and it's shown. And I've updated the statistics and the numbers of Confluence on my site to how many people live there and how many big areas are there, and as well as major influences or not sites. What is it like? Like you will have like a major blacksmith, a major mason, and so on, like major contributors to the economy. But that's all because of what the players have done. That's what I've been keeping tabs on. But I keep it closely knit so that I don't overburden myself, because I don't need to know what's going on 5 cities down the line. Well, I can do like 2 or 3 bullet points, but unless it doesn't trickle down to the players, those are just 2 or 3 bullet points that I can have at the back. So if the players start asking, like, "Oh, what's the rumors down there?" It's like, "Oh, well, 2 or 3 bullet points, throw them their way." Oh, the bites. Oh, now we're gonna go into some number crunching when the players decide to go there.
I'm just going to bring in a map that I'm currently using, and it'll be one that everyone in here will recognize. But I'm going to zoom it. Talk amongst yourselves while I zoom it in. Actually, no. It'll be more effective if I do it. Now, I'm running a MERP game at the moment. I've said a few times before, and I'm of course running from a pre-existing map of possibly the most famous world in the history of fantasy, and there we have the main game map. Okay,
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
No idea.
And this area is pretty big. We've been playing probably 15, 16 months, and so far, let me just zoom this in. The only part of the map that has actually come into play is, I've got to go in further because they haven't even gone that far. I can't. That's it. I'm zooming in as far as possible. They went just a little bit west of the Brandywine.
Like you
That's
do.
where they. Then they went to Bree. Then they went just south of Bree a bit. Then when they went back to Bree, then back over towards the Shire. down the river to Sarn Ford. Then they went down to Metreth. Then they went on a fairly sizable journey down the Brandywine to the Erin Vaughan, and almost immediately returned back again to Sarn Ford and Metreth and Turngorthad. And that's it. So in terms of this map, they've not actually covered a massive area at all in that 15 months. So yes, it's keeping them in a fairly close area, but it keeps it all quite grounded, and and it enables you to develop consistent NPCs that they can come back to, which is always good. I like those little details of having consistent NPCs that've got an ongoing influence in the campaign. Because after all, aren't the details that you use most often when you're running games the NPCs that they encounter, the NPCs that they interact with?
Definitely would say so, or it would be consistent details of the world. I'm in a game of like 1 player, 1 DM, and the human faction that we play with is Roman Greco inspired, and there's always mention of the 6 houses or the 6 senators of that faction, because that is such a major part of it. The Senate, the High Senator, each Senate houses. Me and the other guy, we have memorized them, so that because they're so important. But I don't know the individual characters of them. I just know these houses are important because they're always mentioned. No matter which other faction we play as, when we swap around, the houses always are being brought up.
And this was the map for the last session. I drew that one in Incarnate. Where they uncovered Angmarian treachery within Metreth.
What? I wouldn't call it. Angmars are very honourable people.
Oh no, they're not.
Oh yes.
Oh no, they're not. Oh,
there's a wonderful king up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, that's it's focusing a campaign on a small area. That allows you to exploit those details a lot more easily, and it creates less work for you as a GM in the long run.
But I would also go on.
Sorry, what part of my campaign setting do you think is the most developed?
I mean, given the fact that we are in Palabria,
you're not in Palabria. You're on Albana.
Albana. I mean, it'll be Albana, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It is the most developed part. And it's what I can hand you literally a 3-page document that explains the island, a little blurb about each country, what the religions are, and you're good to go. Right? Yeah. And then you guys are exploring it. You're the first players in the history of me running these games to set 1 foot 1 meter into Escaine for the first time. Like, it's amazing. I mean, this idea that having backstory and all this stuff it tires me out. It tires me out listening to people argue about it. It tires me out people saying you can't have both. You can do whatever you want. It's your game, your world, your fun, right? Now, when you step into a published world like you have with Middle-earth, or like I do when I run Star Trek, now you're getting into trouble. Because those people are coming in as fans, and they have ideas, and they have preconceived notions. Star Wars being the worst for that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, you're going to run into their shit all the time. So that's why I prefer normally to run my own worlds, because it's much easier.
It's easy. I find Star Wars easy because I throw them out in the fringes where law and order doesn't really apply. I can make up whatever the hell I want, and it will be the Hutts who run the thing at the end of the day, because I like the Hutts. The Hutts are cool. That slugs that are just glorified accountants.
Can you just admit that you're a gnome of Zurich, please?
What? I don't know what this means.
Yeah. Gnomes of Zurich. You don't know what that means. Okay. You haven't read the Illuminati trilogy, sir?
No.
Put it on your
Sounds like Saxius has got some books to read.
It's called A Fairy Tale for the Parenthood.
Illuminatus trilogy, is that the one?
Yep.
I need to. Illuminatus, all right. I'll add it to my wish list now.
It's a damn good fine read.
Sorry, I might have missed a call in on this one, but going back to the NPC thing, John, you do really well in fleshing out the world with your NPCs, especially when you do your accents and stuff. Gotta say, you're not as good as Bear, but it's very impressive.
Oh,
The
thank you.
Caterina Cavallaro.
My Italian accent
And
is,
her-
is appalling.
And her
It's absolutely appalling.
unmistakably beautiful singing voice, and how you
I-
described how it wasn't coming from her face, just the way you did it.
Thank
I
you.
want to know why Helikar just wrote Paul Orndorff. What the hell?
Somebody
Mr.
just said something about greased wrestlers.
Oh, I was like, why are we talking about Mr. Wonderful? What the hell's going on?
But no,
I
I
knew
mean,
his nephew.
my strength,
character.
my strength is in terms of DMing is with NPC interactions generally.
Mine too.
So I double down on that, and
Yeah.
that's how I like to bring the details in.
And me / my character had that moment of revelation, as someone was saying earlier, where I was like, "Oh, could this be?" You know what I mean?
Yeah. At which point it actually says in the adventure, whoever realizes this could be her has to make a sanity check. I was so glad it was you again.
Who else, man? Who else?
Why do you hate his sanity so much, John?
Because it's
Why
fun.
do
Do you know what the thing is? I'm quite I don't know what the word is, but it's like I'm quite cavalier with just investigating things without hesitation.
good? I mean, end of the
It's
day,
like-
you're playing.
It's Call of Cthulhu, exactly.
Yeah.
Now,
Like-
speaking of voices and all that, John, the Baldur's Gate game that you stream on here every now and then, who is the old guy that's always complaining about he's too tired and doesn't want to?
Oh, that's a
do
dwarf.
things when you offer him
Kagain.
something.
Kagain.
Okay, that is the voice that I do for Ramney in Cult of the Reptile God, because he's old and hobbled and can't travel very fast. So whenever they're going anywhere, I'm tired. We need to rest for a while.
Well, when I encountered when my group met Ramney, I decided that if I was to say to you, "Fig off," does that remind you of a certain British comedy series? Irish, maybe an Irish comedy series.
No, I'm Canadian. I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
You've never seen
Drink!
Father Ted. Drink. You've never seen
what?
Father Ted.
Never seen what?
Father Ted.
Oh, you're doing him. Okay, yeah, you did. That's not good. You need to work
No.
on that.
I hear you're a racist now, Father.
I hear you're racist now, Father.
No, but he was basically Father Jack.
Yeah.
Ramney was Father Jack. So he was a drunkard and very, very abusive.
Hello, friends. Stay a while and listen. Do
I'm
that to your
very
players and watch
experienced
their
at playing
fucking eyes
drunkards.
bug out.
Oh
That
my
was
god!
Diablo 2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm out of there. I am not playing in that world. Fuck that.
Yeah.
No.
Your players' eyes will shoot right the fuck out of their heads if you do that voice, because they'll be like, wait. Are we fighting?
Where
demons?
are we?
What the hell?
Where
What's the name
are
of the
we?
town? Welcome to Tristram. Oh, what? You know.
We have a problem
when it
out
comes to
here in the
world-
back. It's like no.
When it comes to world details, is there anything that is your particular specialty that you have to put in there? I mean, Saxius, obviously the economics and the bookkeeping background
Yeah.
part, but is there something that you just can't wait to put in?
Religion.
Okay.
I like Lost Mythos sort of things.
For me as a player, I like to sort of make jokes every now and then to keep things lighthearted.
Well, yeah.
Well, the guys and gags everybody's talking about there in the stream. And when I looked at it, and their initial sentence made me go, I would never give this money, which is, the classic and lampoonery. I'm not interested. Thank you very much.
The only reason I would buy that at all is because they have Ed Greenwood as like a NPC or something, so I could kill him. But other than that, him and his damn Mary Sue Elminster, it's like, go away. You're not Guy Gax. You never will be. Quit trying to fake it.
Whatever.
No, for me, it's mental health issues. Like I have a critical hit. It's a fairly mild critical hit set of charts, but if you take a pretty good blow to the head, then you have a chance of developing closed head trauma and all the things that go with that. And I've got a big chart broken down of all the different ways it can manifest itself. because of all the latent spores in the air if they go to the myconids, there's a whole set of hallucinations they might start randomly suffering with flashbacks.
I put drugs into my games quite a lot. I like to inflict them on the players.
I really like bringing about I really like the historical social setups that that can be brought about. Again, I like Warhammer Fantasy for how absurd it is, but also because it brings out a lot of insights of here's how the classes work, here's where you were born and why you wouldn't travel this far out. And again, having played Kingdom Come Deliverance, the video game, I got a greater deal of insights into what it's like being a peasant, which really enhanced what I can do. I like bringing about these social structures, and I try to put a lot of emphasis, because I still have players that will sit there and go, why do I want to be a knight? A knight's boring. Like, what, I can do everything that better than a knight. They just have a sir in front of them. It's like, you might be a level 7 fighter. That knight over there, he might only be a level 5. But he's been training since he was 12. He's, at about 21 years of age. But he's been training since he was 12. I'd put him up at level 5 by the time he's given the knighthoods. Yeah, he might be less qualified than you, but there's all the political backing to it. So I want to put emphasis that who you are in the world matters, and that there is a hierarchy. You can claw your way up, but you're only allowed to go so high up. At least when I run the world, because those who are much higher than you will see you come up and go, no. That door will close because your likes are not welcome there.
Yeah, for me, it's about cultures. I really like having cultures that make sense. When I first designed fantasy worlds back in the day, I was like Mistar. I just threw them wherever the hell I wanted to, with no concept of how they would all interact with each other, or how they might influence each other. And then as I learned more and more about geopolitics and things like that, I was like, well, this needs to make more goddamn sense.
I know. I've changed one of the kingdoms from being like Rome to being Poland, because the kingdom is basically beset on every single side. It's destroyed so many times over the centuries, but the people has persevered. So I've gone like, no, this is the strong spirit of Poland, because Poland as a country was gone from the map for 100 years, but the Polish people persevered and went, we exist. And that's what I decided this kingdom was going to be about. And it was a culture that continued despite years and years of oppression. Similarly with Ireland, there's been the history there is just really bleak, but they've persisted.
Any country that can put up a knight that will stand off a column of panzers, you got to give them props.
Yeah, go on, Bear.
I got to bounce. I got my supper coming, and then I got to get ready for the 4-Color Cafe tonight. We're going to have Tim Kask. Don't know if you've heard of him.
Oh,
Tim Kask is going to be on tonight.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then next week, Larry Elmore.
Nice.
Bloody hell.
Getting crazy.
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Oh, my God.
Bloody hell. I mean, I would like to speak with Tim Kask at some point and really dig into his mind what he was thinking about with the way he edited Dragon Magazine.
I was just going to say, you're going to complain about the way he breaks up articles in Dragon Magazine.
Absolutely.
Well, you can feel free to avoid the chat then tonight, John. That'd be nice.
It'll be while I'm asleep, so you're safe. You're safe.
Anyway, I got to go, guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
Bye.
And I'll see you soon.
Mm-hmm.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
I mean, one little detail I want to put into a published module. I changed one little detail of a published module, which completely changed how the module ran. Go back to the drugs thing. In U1, Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh, they're in a mouldy old house, and it mentions some harmless mushrooms growing on the floorboards of one of the rooms. So all I did is I made them hallucinogenic.
Nice.
The party found out they were hallucinogenic. then found the enemy's beer stores and promptly spiked the whole lot, and then went away and came back a few days later. I thought, all because I just decided to make those mushrooms hallucinogenic. They basically managed to take out all the bad guys while they were high as kites. Little details like that can change a game, can change the whole structure of an adventure.
Now, something else I like to do, you said that was specific to that house because of the condition it was in. Again, in the adventure my group's in right now, they captured the one priest, and she had magic chainmail and a ring of protection +1. Well, ring of protection +1 is about as vanilla as you can get. Well, she's a priestess of a goddess of nature, a farming goddess. So when they finally figure out what that ring does, because identify just basically gives them the school of magic it comes from. That's it. It doesn't tell you, oh, this is a ring of protection +2 with a +3 on your saving throws, blah, blah, blah. Well, this ring is going to be something that a priestess of an agricultural goddess would make use of. So it's going to have some protection abilities, but it's not just a ring of protection +1. What it's going to do is give them a chance to identify poisonous vegetation and a bonus on their saving throws against ingested poison, because that's something that would go along with a priestess of nature instead of just being a ring +1.
Yeah, and those sort of little details can help bring flavor to the pantheon, to the general sort of idea of different gods and goddesses for different functions. You were going to dive in there, Saxius, and say something.
No.
Well, and the same thing, if you're playing with training costs, which can get real steep real quick, they took out the big cleric who had chainmail +2. Okay, so one of the party is using it, and they know what it is because that is a religious relic that is passed down from leader of the church to leader of the church. So the mayor knew what it was and told them. Well, assuming they successfully complete this adventure, it will break the charm on the priestess, and she will offer to buy it back because that's a relic of the church, and they're all chaotic neutral type, so there's no way they're just going to give it back because it's the right thing to do. So she will go into debt to buy it back from them, and that will allow them to be able to train. And it takes, that's kind of a powerful item for a first and second level character to have, a +2 suit of anything. So that will help restore the balance. It'll give some more depth to what this church is all about. And, first of all, that priestess is feeling guilty because she let herself get charmed and do terrible things and needs to make penance for that. But she is going to be grateful to that party because they let her get that artifact back. So that is something they may or may not use later on. I don't want to use the term exploit, but I know my players. Yeah. But it's, that's something that makes it more personalized to them.
Yeah.
If anyone does hear a buzz humming in the background from me at the moment, I've just had to turn my heater on because it's just got very cold up in my attic.
I don't hear anything.
Good.
Good. No, there's another detail that I add into that I've only just started editing it in, which is if a magical items in what I'm wanting to do is basically they're built upon legends. They're built upon, either you craft them magically or they are from a hero who has gone out and he's done exploits. So if you are a character and from, let's say, a fighter from level 1 to level 5 and you use the same sword, by the time you hit level 5, I will make that a magical item because for who knows how long you've been carrying that sword with you. You've looked after it, you've used it, you've gone fighting, exploring, dungeon delving. At that point, it becomes a magical item with some sort of property to reflect your character and your exploits. So that way, yes, there's a bunch of, lower magical items, but I approach my D&D games with the mindset of adventurers are absolute lunatics. You have got to be a very special kind of have a very special kind of mentality to be willing to go out, risk your life against orcs, goblins, hobgoblins, and other monstrosities that can easily rip you apart, and then come back with their treasure. So your adventurers are weirdos, but the ones who survive and make it, they become legendary. They have items of magic, and it's because the world is surrounded by a lot of lore and surrounded by myth and mythology. These items then become imbued with the myth and the mythology that they are leaving behind, and that's why there's a lot of lower level items, because throughout 1,000 years there will be a lot of adventurers who have been successful. The ones that are going to be very difficult to get is +3 and +4, and with the unique borderline, in below 10 in numbers total, it's going to be the +5 items, which are going to be found and hoarded away by both the good and the evil. But those who live long enough, go on.
These items should be named and should have a history.
They should be. I leave the naming to that. The players that I have not named their items, but the items that they find that has this thing, they are named. But again, identify does not give you its name. What I do is that the way identify was normally made was that you swallow a pearl and then you get the insights. I have it so that you pull the magical essence out of the item into the pearl to then have like a small TV to then show you the escapades, the major highlights of this sword and who used it, used. So that way it becomes a sort of like it's an insight of how it was used and how they were able to overcome these things when they said the magical word to overcome it. And all these properties are then, these are where you roll your percentiles to then discover what other things that this magical item can do. That's how I am starting to do my magical items these days.
I've stressed to my players that identify is going to give you an indication, but if you want to find out what it is, you need to find a sage, or you need to go to a library and do your own research or something like that, because that is where you're going to find out what it is. Any weapon that is +2 or higher has a history, has a name, and has a history in my game, just like you said. Because there was an article in Dragon Magazine talking about Fafford and the Grey Mouser. Their weapons were named, and they said, if you think about it, it's a non-magical broadsword and a non-magical whatever, but yet they've still got a name and they've got a lore. So why wouldn't a +3 whatever have some pretty detailed background to it? So I started doing it ever after I read that article.
I definitely agree, and there are certain things I would definitely keep off. I mean, some things I might, for weapons, again, it depends on the game. I can see why you wouldn't do, just give them the math. They would have to go like, okay, I now go out and I hit the dummy. I do it 100 times. Like, what do I get mathematically? Yeah, fine. Or you can go and do the whole sage thing and then learn it. But my understanding of identify is that it's meant to give you the properties, maybe not the numbers, maybe not the special words, or you have to extract it out somehow else, but it's a different way of getting the information out of a magical item. But sages should be a valid thing. Sometimes, you know what? You need to go to the sage to get the final details. I mean, hell, if you want to go hunting for a magical item, you need to just hire the sage to do it for you.
There's an old man in the village they start in. His nickname is Dad because he's just got a terrible attitude about everything. So whenever something happens, he's like, Dad gummit, I knew that was going to happen. Or Dad blame it, I knew that was a bad idea. Well, Dad is almost 100 years old. So he was the first quote unquote sage they met. They happened upon a history book. When they were recovering wreckage from downriver, that was one of the random things they could find. And in this history book, it talked about Treefeller the woodsman and his tomb. Well, Dad was old enough to remember where this tomb was, so they went there and they found his axe, which was magical. If you tried to use it in combat, it cursed you, but it allowed you to work for 8 hours straight chopping wood without needing to take a break. So that was something that was instrumental in them helping rebuild the damaged buildings and everything. But they would have, if they had just stumbled upon an axe, like, oh, hey, this is a cool axe, I'm going to use it to attack, whatever it is they're going to attack. But they made use of the old man, and he said, oh, I remember stories about this that my grandpa used to tell me.
No.
So,
go on.
I was going to say we've got about 30 minutes of on-topic stuff possibly left on the stream, and there's one thing I want to add. I was going to ask it to Bear as well, but he's not here. One thing I want to ask to you two: how often do you leave details in your world down to chance? As in dice and tables. What the reason I'm bringing this up here is Mage's Musings. How many on his channel of his game that's playing through? How many of the details and ongoing enemies and little side bits in the game have been generated by a random encounter?
I'll tell you one that just for mine. When they were out finding the phasmatodes, the giant walking sticks, on their trip there and back, it was I don't remember how many days it was, but they had several wandering monster rolls, and for 3 of those wandering monster rolls, and this is a relatively tame woods, for 3 of them they had deer. So the second time I got deer, it's like, okay, well, you recognize that's the same doe that you had seen before. So they decided they were going to throw her some food. Well, then I rolled the deer again. And it's like, okay, it's that same doe, but this time she brings her 2 fawns with her because, she remembers you and blah, blah, blah. So they fed the doe and the fawns. The ranger in the group, one of his animal companions, he has no clue about this later on, is going to be one of those fawns that has grown up to be a stag because it remembers the kindness that this random monster encounter that they showed those animals. So certain things, that random dice roll is going to have an impact later on. And
That's
obviously
exactly
reaction rolls are going to be huge. I mean, you make a bad impression with the wrong person that first time, that can have lasting consequences.
Mm-hmm.
What about, do you do much with the randomness, Zacchaeus?
I mean, have you not seen my tables of factions and their interactions? I mean, that's all random. That's just me using the statistics of the world to play out their own thing. I do a lot
the existence of a faction. Would that could be created by a random roll ever?
No. That's purely by design. I do sit down and go like, what's happening here? What am I doing with these ones? What input are these going to do for the story? So like a faction is going to be generated for that. I do random encounters by random encounters, but I do quite often look down at the tables and go like, okay, something happens, rather than roll what happens there. And I just look to see what there is, and like, well, that one, this makes sense for why they're going to be running into it, because there might be certain environments. I mean, I'm going to use a good example. At one point I rolled up that my players were going to run into face spiders, but I looked at face spiders under random encounter, and I just went, that there is no reason I can think of why face spiders should be in this area. There's no mad wizard, there's no escape laboratories, there's no reason why they would be traveling across these lands. No. So I went up and down the table and I saw hill giants. I went, well, there are hill giants nearby. Let's roll to see how many there is. It's an entire clan. Brilliant. A hill giant raid is happening nearby. Refugees are streaming in. And in that session, the players made a big name for themselves because they did every single stop to get the refugees off the land into the sea and up to the ship, with nets hanging off from the sides, crappy rafts at the back with rope tied to them, and people hanging off the sides, getting as many refugees as they could, preventing the boat from sinking and tipping over, and then getting out of there from the giants that they came wading in. That was a random encounter, but it made a lasting impact.
There was one of my MERP sessions where the party basically said, we're going to spend the next session just sort of exploring the edges of the Chetwood, looking for herbs for our journey. So I rolled some random encounters, things they would randomly find, and one of the things that came up were humans. In fact, I had multiple instances of humans. So I added a woodcutter's camp, that outfit there, and I added a mad hermit who was an outcast from the towns around Bree because he'd been a petty criminal, and he ended up befriending the party. The party took him back, found him work, and he's now a potential lifelong ally for the party because they treated him really well. And it's created an ongoing NPC who they have gone back and revisited, which is always nice to create that, even in an established, existing, defined world such as Middle-earth. Obviously, adding in the individuals adds in the details, but it was nice to create that just from random tables. That they can give you those. When I initially rolled up lots of humans, I was somewhat disappointed. I was thinking, I wonder if there could be something else interesting. And I've got humans. And I thought, no, actually, I can make this work. I can do something with it. And we had a couple of sessions in that Chetwood encounter, those Chetwood sessions. We had there was a beast in one of the streams that the party didn't bother investigating. Is that beast still there? Is it? They don't know. There were some ruins, and that was orcs. Yeah, okay, orcs in the ruins, and they were attacked by a small Wolverine type beast as well. Those were quite natural, but it was the existence of these humans that has added some ongoing, dualism in plays in that. They were random encounters that I thought, okay, how can I make them work? And they did.
I got to step out for just a second. I'll be right back.
Yep.
And it gives them. I mean, it makes you as DM. It sometimes pushes you out of your comfort zone, which is a good thing. It makes you makes you think of things you might not otherwise have thought of.
Yeah, but I'm only going to take it so far. I'm not going to let the dice dictate, what it is. Again, me with the face bias, I looked at it and went like, well, I'm just using what I can get out of this because I don't believe in making my own tables for it. That's too much.
Well,
that's work. I know you do, but that's not work I'm willing to be putting in because that is I'm going to be going into a level of detail I can just do without. Going down into the ecology and the hierarchy and the biology of all the monsters and how they interact. That's details that I don't need. I don't need to explain that. I don't need to set that up. I'm just like, okay, there are things out there, and I would rather just make a giant encounter list of like, here's anything that's in a hill, here's anything that's in a forest, so on and so on. So I just got a huge variety, and then from there I can just either pick and choose or do a larger roll because that's, for me, somehow it's just easier to deal with.
I mean, the encounter tables in Middle-earth are very well done anyway. So I used the ones for the region that are in the Middle-earth books to generate those. Hello, Cody. But there's been a few encounters in my my Yule game on a Saturday. Yep. I basically went through the books and wrote down all the things that could feasibly be encountered in a wintry area, put all the common things in the middle, and then put very rare sort of things at the end. I've got 15 things on there. I rolled 2d8. And obviously, you're mostly going to roll sort of between 7 and 12. So between 7 and 12, it's things like wolves, deer, elk, that sort of thing. But if you go to the fringes, you've got things like Yetis. And if I roll a double one, there's a white dragon.
Reamer has.
Fair enough.
I haven't put a Remoraz there. No, I haven't put one of those. No, I will admit I haven't put one of those. But there are some pretty horrible things at 2 and 16 on the table, and they could happen. And it's up to me. I think it's up to me as a DM to make them work. Personally, but they've mostly had wolves and deer and elk and that sort of thing. They did have a tribe of Neanderthals, which made for a little interesting diversion. They've had a giant weasel, which of course will be in its winter pelt. They did have some Yetis and got very lucky with driving the Yetis off. But I think it's just I like Mage's approach there, Sean's approach, in that he thinks of a way to make it work.
I get what you're saying, but that is down for preference, and I would rather put my energy in elsewhere because that is fun for me.
Yeah. It is down to. I mean, it is down to Bevel. Yes, it was a tough encounter, and I thought I thought Straw Piglet might like the giant weasels because he likes his stoats. I may have reskinned it as a giant stoat. I can't remember. Was it a weasel? Whatever it was.
It was
whatever
something.
It was. Yeah. Yes. It was a mustelid. Giant mustelid. But yes, the Yetis was going to be a tough encounter, especially when I rolled multiple Yetis. So, yeah. I don't think I had them attack the party at the same time, though. I thought the way I would wiggle it would be that there would be a little bit of a gap between the two of them arriving. You've got to sort of wiggle it sometimes for the party to give the party a chance to survive. Yetis riding giant stoats. Yeah, that would be an idea, but no, that's not on my table. It's not on my table. There was a chance of having giant white apes with the Neanderthals, but that didn't happen.
Was it Straw Piglet that said that by any chance?
Yes, it was. Yes.
How did I know?
But no, it wasn't a set encounter, Slam. It came off my table. I just thought, yeah, we'll have that.
Yeah, Grumpy Old Man a few weeks ago was going through some of the cleric spells in Unearthed Arcana.
Yeah.
And one of the ones in there was Create Golem, and one of them, there's a Straw Golem. So I'm going to, actually, it's in the Temple of Marika. The players just didn't find it. There's a Straw Golem in the shape of a pig that basically is a Roomba. It goes around dragging its little straw legs and sweeps up around the place. So, yeah, they're going to get a chance to run into Straw Piglet. They did find Manfred, and he told who was a little 8-year-old boy, and he told them all about the beautiful aardvarks in the temple.
Yes. Did that confuse them?
It did until the mayor said, that he's been there. He didn't see any aardvarks. He says, "You don't mean artwork?" And he says, "Yeah, that's what I said, aardvarks," because that's an 8-year-old kid.
Did they touch the golden statues?
I thought the dwarf was going to. I wanted him to, but no, they didn't. The magic user said, these things look like they're in pristine condition. There's probably a reason for that.
Good. He's probably watched my review of the me. Yes. I hope he hasn't. I don't want to spoil it for him. But no. And one thing I like about those old modules is having those little touches that you can spin. Little details that you can easily overlook that you can spin out. I thought the Giant series would be great for that.
Right. On that note, I am going to have to bounce. I've got some work to do tomorrow. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been good to talk to you all.
Cheers, Saxius.
See you.
Saxius.
Bye.
If anybody in chat would like to join us for the last half hour to just shoot some shit, because I think we've pretty much hammered the topic, you're more than welcome to do so. The link is in the usual place in the in the Discord. You are more than welcome to click that link and appear on here. And you're more than welcome to fall asleep because Daniel's already set that precedent.
There is one thing that I want to mention. I know I really talk about this a lot, but in Call of Cthulhu, your level of detail is to the point where I don't know what you're making up and I don't know what's actually in there, which is good. Does that make sense?
I will say now, there are times when you have forced me to make up 100% of it. Most of it is about 75% in there and about 25% my bullshit.
Okay.
But
the good thing is I'm not able, and I'm sure the rest of the players aren't able to distinguish what's what, which is the sign of a good storyteller, right?
Yeah, that's just one of the skills you develop over time.
It does take time to get the confidence to do that sort of thing. But there are times when I sit here going, why did I do that? They've gone off on a wild goose chase. Why did I do that? Why did I do that? I'm making it hard for myself, but that's just the way it is. Just the way
I ran a whole night like that. My Halloween group, they screwed up because they always find a way to screw up and totally missed the Halloween thing that I had put out for them because the mage who loves fire got overzealous and said, well, it's Halloween and there's scarecrows here. Obviously, they've got something to do with it. They started torching scarecrows, so the farmer lost his mind. The city guard tried to arrest him for malicious destruction of property. So they said, well, screw it. And they headed out to the coast and were going along the coast because they were supposed to be finding a missing, find out what happened to a ship that was coming up the coast. And I had planned nothing for that because that wasn't even on the horizon. So we did the whole night. We didn't touch the dice the entire night. It was all just role playing.
Before we bring in Slant to the conversation, I just want to mention a little bit where making up a few added details can horribly backfire. I was running my party through a Call of Cthulhu adventure where they basically had to get embroiled in a bit of shenanigans and then follow a lead to a nearby sanitarium to speak to somebody who has been committed there, and they got a bit more invested into the killing of an innocent than I'd predicted. So I brought in, obviously the police will get involved, and the police came to talk to them. And as the policeman left the house where they were staying, turned around and says, "Of course, you're at the you're involved in our inquiry, so don't be leaving town. We'll need to speak to you." The sanitarium was 100 miles away. Could I get them to go to that sanitarium? No, because the policeman had told them not to leave town. They wouldn't go. They just would not go. And I just threw that bit in with the police just to make it feel more believable.
Like a little offhand comment.
And I was like,
standard
why?
Police procedural dialogue.
Yeah, I was like, why have I done that? Why? And they completely failed the adventure.
I had some of my random encounters aren't actually things. Like there was one time they were going to the neighboring town as caravan guards, and I just rolled and came up with you see what looks like the paw print of a large cat in the mud beside the road. They spent an hour and a half trying to find this stupid cat that wasn't there because it was just a bit of flavor that I put on the chart.
I ran a conversion of Death Trap Dungeon as a one shot, the Choose Your Own Adventure, and I ran it as a one shot. And one of the encounters you have in it is with one of the servants who is just carrying food through the dungeon. You might know the encounter.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. They wanted to know where he'd come from and who he was delivering the food to.
Because that matters so much, doesn't it?
Yeah, but they wanted to know. And they wanted to follow him. And it's like, oh, it's not in there. It's not in there. He's just someone you pass in the corridor. It's not in there. Oh no! Oh no! Yeah. Anyway, how are you doing?
think
Stan?
that's-
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
Are you grumpy or are you jolly tonight?
I'm doing well. I'm pretty happy, I guess. Had a good day at work and listening to the stream now.
Good.
So-
And in terms of, well, I'm going to throw you back at the topic, I think.
Okay.
Your thoughts on the topic of tonight and level of detail you like to put into games or that you like to get from games.
Well, one thing I like to do, and I have no idea if this enhances the adventure or not, but is I like to have a theme on the adventure and try to have some of the, if not all the encounters partly reflect that theme. So if you think back of the curse, the Spring of the Gods adventure, I think you were in a few weeks back. When I designed the encounters, they were, because the curse is the village, the curse saps the strength of the villagers. The encounters you have are things you associate with strength in one way or another. There's the ogre, but the ogre is old and now feeble in some ways. In fact, you don't notice because you didn't fight him, but he has a -1 to hit and -1 on damage because he's so old, you know?
Right.
The bear is often associated with strength. The bull that you could have encountered that's run away is another symbol of strength. So I try to do it like that, and I think it's the kind of detail that can sometimes really work well, and it also can create some foreshadowing of what's going to happen later without consciously doing the foreshadowing. You know, if you're, you know, the other adventure I ran, which I didn't have it quite as prepared as I wanted, but I tried to have, you know, corrupted nature as the theme. So you had things like the root thing and, you know, things like that. So that's a something that I find can add to an adventure. And from what I've seen of Call of Cthulhu adventures, they often do something like that.
It tends to be, very much on a theme, and I mean, even in Orient Express, it's the bit in Milan. It's all about the opera. It's everything's all tied in to a particular aria in Aida. And how they believe that they'll get their greatest wish. There's a certain bit in that aria which I had one of the characters translate, which is meaningful for the plot. So the whole that section was very much based on that theme, and there is a theme to Venice as well when they get there. So I wonder how quickly they'll spot it. But I don't disagree. Themes can be interesting. Themes can be interesting. What was I going to say? There was something I was going to say, and I can't remember what it was. And I've completely lost my
themes. Call of Cthulhu, Milan, Venice, intellectual quandary, wondering what's going to happen to his character once he gets to the city of Venice.
Yeah.
No. Oh, I can't think. I'm getting old. Oh, yes. There were a number of published adventures that I would argue had too many details. Wasted details. Details that actually made them really interesting for the DM to read, but would never come out in play, or mostly would not come out in play. Do you remember the Hidden Shrine of Tomoe-chan?
Mm-hmm.
All that lovely Mesoamerican flavor.
Mm-hmm.
And all the descriptions and the names of the places that were all beautifully thought out and linked to all the mythology. How many players would notice any of that? It's all for the DM's eyes.
That's an adventure I wish they would have made sequels to, or made it part of a series, because it was just because of that.
Yeah. There was so much thematic detail in there that could so easily be missed. And another one of my favorites, When a Star Falls. I've often kicked myself. I don't think I've ever run it particularly well. But in there, you've got sages and all the details of their fields of study. And I've never found a way of bringing those to the table properly in the game, in the adventure. There's no other adventure I know of by TSR that's goes into that level of detail about the NPCs. And so often the players are just in there to kill them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a shame. It really is a shame.
That's one of the things for my group where they found the hidden treasure. There was at the very beginning, they had this colony of giant ants that wiped out the little village of Beavertown. Well, they found a spring, or a mineral spring that was brine. Well, the area that we're from, which the first part is based on, Dow Chemical, is started here, and it started by them sinking brine wells and separating out the chemicals of it. So I thought that'd be a cool tie-in to our local history. And they did think to take a sample of it and give it to the local magic user and have him break it down and do an alchemical study. And one of the things they found was that one of the extracts from this can be made into an insecticide. So they used that to weaken the ants so that when they went to, it was a much easier fight for them.
Good idea.
And, that was a couple levels of detail that they had to pick up on. And I mean, I wouldn't have felt bad if they didn't do it. I mean, I would laughed when they laughed a little bit to myself when they got killed, but there was that having that detail in there can be a huge turning point. And I told them, at one point they had a brainstorming session with the town council to come up with ideas, and I gave them, for each original idea they came up with, they got 20 experience points, because this was getting them from level 0 to level 1. And one of the guys said, we're in a pine forest. Why don't we take pine sap and basically make giant flypaper? Nice idea. He got double experience for that.
Yeah.
But I mean, that, just if you want to call it a detail, hey, most of the trees around us are pine. So that they took what would have been just, again, a throwaway detail and used that into something that could help them later on. When I was in high school, my big thing, I tried to make the whole world back then. And I had a nice map drawn out, but never got very far with it. And my big thing was I had the tectonic plates, I had water currents, I had air currents and all that. And, it'd be neat to see what kind of use they would make out of that information now, but that stuff all was taken out in the purge of '92. So I don't know.
Yeah.
And when you're gaming as a teenager, it's often superfluous information to the way the teenage players play, isn't it?
Well, that was just something we were covering in science class at the time. It's like, hey, I can put this in here.
Oh, right. Yeah. You were going to say something, Slam?
I was going to say, I have an old fanzine where this guy who was a geology professor worked out the tectonic plates for Middle Earth. And, does this make sense? And how would these mountains have shown up like this? How would Mount Doom be where it is and all of that? And he worked it all out. I should try and dig it out and make a video of that.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
That would be really good. It's obviously Mount Doom. There's obviously going to be a rift in the in the crust under the earth. There, isn't there?
Yeah.
It's got to be.
It's a hot spot.
Yes.
Well, that
I'll
whole
try and
area
find
was active, if I remember right. Wasn't the whole plains of, what was it, Golgora or whatever it was. Wasn't that whole thing supposed to have active, volcanic activity, just not as big as Mount Doom?
And it's quite barren and arid inside the plane. Yes.
And vents with the fumes from below coming out. So clearly, volcanic activity happening throughout.
So all that dark magic did something to sap the strength of the crust of the Earth and allowed that to be closer to the surface.
What if the plane of God, because it's like a horseshoe shape, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
What if it was a single supervolcano that blew out eastwards, creating the plane?
Oh, neat. Yeah, like a trap.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
And if it were to erupt again, that would take out Arda.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. There's an idea for an adventure. I think that's a bit too much for Middle Earth. I think that's too much.
Yeah.
But that would take them out of their sort of struggle to suspend disbelief. I think with that, it could be a dawn.
Well, suspending disbelief is fun. Hanging it, not so much.
Yeah.
Well, and you think about anytime you've got stuff coming up from underneath the crust, there are going to be all sorts of strange and unusual chemicals that wouldn't normally make it to the surface. So they might have to go scrape some of that funky yellow stuff off the side of a geyser spout for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Of course, the mage might want to craft certain items that are related to fire and require freshly scraped sulfur, pure sulfur.
Potion of fire resistance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He can bring all these little natural details into that. You bring in like recipes for potions.
Metamorphic rocks would have to be the basis for any kind of transformation magic. So,
absolutely,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, yeah. There's lots of fun stuff you can do.
It all depends.
That brings in real world science as well.
Yeah, it depends. It does. I mean, it depends how real worldy you want to. I mean, I like it to feel real worldy at its base, and yeah, you could certainly.
Yeah, but
bring in those
things like the guano you need for a fireball. That's based on real world science. That it was used to make gunpowder.
Yeah, saltpeter.
The saltpeter was used to make gunpowder, but it's just okay, we need a material component. What can we use? And in many cases, for what's it called, the one where you can read other people's minds,
ESP,
yeah, the material component is a copper coin, which is clearly a reference to a penny for your thoughts.
Yeah.
The
identify spell, you're supposed to part of it is the original first AD&D is swallowing a live goldfish, something they do at a fraternity house at a college. So tying into that whole higher education.
Is that really something they do?
Yeah, it 100 gold piece pearl, an owl feather, and a live goldfish. So the way we always did it, you would dissolve the pearl in the wine, or in wine, stir it with the owl feather, eat your live goldfish, and then drink your spiked wine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all just fraternity pranks.
An expensive fraternity prank, but never.
Yeah.
Well, hey, if you got to buy your friends, you got money, right?
Yeah.
There's an element of David Blaine in there swallowing live animals.
But adding things from details from the real world into a campaign. I was talking about how the different types of money that they have. Well, in about a month or so, I'm going to go up to the Upper Peninsula here in Michigan. On one of the shores of Lake Superior, they have these rocks called Uperlites, and I don't remember what it is that's in them, but if you you go out at night and you use UV light, and they glow in the ultraviolet light.
Yeah.
So that got me thinking, if they were to ever, because there's a dwarf in the party, if they were ever to encounter a dwarf homeland, a dwarf city, instead of gold coins or something like that, they are going to use polished and shaped rocks that emit the stronger the radiation they release, the more they're worth. So it's going to be something that ultravision would show you, hey, that's a brighter rock than this one, whereas a human is going to look at that and say it's just another rock.
They're both gray.
Yeah. Yeah, in geology class, we had AFBR, another effing black rock. We had to go out and identify them. So yeah, just the fact that my friend and I are gonna go up there and look for those. It's like, I can fit this into my game.
Something I did with dwarves in my that world I made. I decided to create sort of a gap, 1,000 years of the land being pretty dormant, and there was a small pocket of dwarves that had escaped all the whatever happened beforehand, and they'd found their ways up into this hilly region far to the north, far away from all other races. They tucked themselves comfortably and securely away from trouble. Now, dwarves are an organized, industrious race of people. They're inventive, and they love their beer. So I basically created their society as some fields growing hops, a brewery down at the bottom, a winch and pulley system up to the main fort where most of them lived, and they basically operated this winch to drag the barrels up once the beer was ready. And dwarves that have not been particularly industrious, once they got all this set up, they were then going to be very, very lazy for 950 years. No need to fight, no need to make weapons. So they weren't smiths anymore. They were brewers extraordinaire. They were also very, very lazy and very, very overweight and terrible at fighting, because they'd done pretty much nothing but drink for 950,000 years. And
I think you forgot very, very drunk.
Very drunk. And they built a slide next to the pulley. And the way the dwarfs got back down to the fields to and take the barrels down is that, I took this from Lord of the Rings, they get in the empty barrels, they wouldn't bother walking down, they just slide down this chute that they put next to it. Again, no effort. So you just had dwarves sliding down a chute with empty barrels, refilling the barrels, and then
almost like a makeshift log flume.
Makeshift log flume, and then getting winched back up afterwards by a complex gear system that one dwarf could just sit there with his finger just doing that because they were clever, and then they just drink for the next few months with all these barrels of beer until they need to go get some more. And they take it in turns to work down in the brewery down the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And and I just thought, okay, what will happen to dwarves that have done this for ages? They're not going to be warriors anymore. They really aren't. It's going to just sort of be almost conditioned.
But would they still have the disposition of warriors?
Oh, they were still stubborn.
Would they still think of themselves as being warriors, but like if something happened, they'd realize, oh shit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Would they still have their bonuses against giants and all that, having not used those skills in forever?
Nope. They had a extra dexterity penalty. They had the dexterity penalty, but they had an extra constitution bonus. And that's the way I made them. Because I thought that will fit into the way the world is.
Well, in my game last time we played, as soon as they got into town, the whole party went to do something except the dwarf. He decided he was going to go off on his own because he loves splitting the party. And he ran into Ramney, and he just crushed his reaction roll. So I figure old hermit and dwarf that's just a dwarf and doesn't like to talk to people anyways, they have a common bond. So they're good buddies. So I think that's going to definitely swing in their favor later on, unless he does something absolutely heinous between now and then, like when he wanted to kill all the prisoners because they were too much hassle.
I mean, I love the way Ramney's in that adventure as a way to almost troll the party as well, because he's old and decrepit. He's going to slow them right down, which is why I made him an argumentative old drunk as well. He'd always be sitting down, moaning that he couldn't have a drink when he was out with them, and swearing at them and telling them to fuck off and things like that. And
he will never answer a question straight in my game. Like they ask him, "Well, what do you do?" "Oh, this and that." "Well, what did you do when you were younger?" "Oh, a little bit of everything is wishy washy." Because this says you're not supposed to tell him what he is or what level. Well, not like, this is a 9th level, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'd never do that anyways. But yeah, he will, the closest he's got to answering a question is that when he was younger, he spent a lot of time in libraries. So that's the only information they've gotten out of him.
My group worked out pretty much straight away that Whiskers was his familiar. So they knew what he was. Because of his bond with Whiskers.
Right.
And you can use Whiskers to troll the party as well. A little weasel familiar coming along with the party. Yeah, they can be a pain in the ass. Yes. But, I've always had a lot of fun running that adventure. It's a great adventure. It's not perfect.
Yeah, there's the missing door in the basement of the temple. There's no way to get from the maze to the back.
No.
I'm leaving it missing. They're going to have to figure a way out or a way to get through.
And there's the age-old question of if you're a complete D&D nerd and go by the rules, how do the clerics in the temple cast spells?
Yep. Well, and in case they happen to ask, hey, how was she able to give spells to the clerics? Well, that's because the Naga is actually a servant of this dormant devil, named devil. So he's the one that granted them.
Tharisdun.
I can't bring him in as much as I want to. I can't bring him into this, but if they finish this whole big thing or whatever, decide to go somewhere else, my next one's going to be all Greyhawk. And yeah, definitely. Talking about something that has a lot of detail that the players will probably never get a hold of. Because what are the odds of them saying his name and that can bring along all these things along the way?
For the Forgotten Temple of Tharisdun.
Yeah.
Iman, that is a Cthulhu-inspired D&D adventure.
Ooh, okay.
I think Iman would really like playing that.
Anything that's Cthulhu-y or Lovecrafty, yeah, I'm down.
What was that, Halakar?
I said very ugly cover. Unless you know what the module's about, then it makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the cover always intrigued me, the color of it, but I didn't buy it, not for ages. And as soon as I finally did and opened it up, I was like, "Whoa, I regret not buying this because it's actually fantastic." And yes, it does make sense once you've actually read the adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think I bought it because it was in the level range that we needed for our group. And then when I got into it and they said it's tied into Saj Camp, it's like, oh yeah, this is going to be awesome.
Yes.
But when I DM'd it as a 16-year-old, I did not do any justice to it at all.
No. It is the two of them. They're contrasting adventures. Tharisdun really requires you to enhance the creepiness of that temple.
Tharisdun is it's a module where if you've read Cthulhu Mythos book, if you've read other classics of dark fantasy, will really inform how you can present this to your players.
I hadn't
And
last time I ran it. So
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't do a terrible job of running it, but I didn't quite do it justice. Sodcamp for me, that when I was running it when I was a teenager, it was just a monster menagerie, big fight fest. When I ran it more recently, I was able to put a bit more into it, but that requires, it's a bit like Keep on the Borderlands in that sense. So you've really got to think about how the various denizens are interacting.
Well, and that really, with all the teleporting, that puts a major strain on the party mapper, assuming there is one.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's what it's supposed to do. I mean, it's supposed to, if you're playing rules as written, it's supposed to confound you based on following those rules.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I had only read one Lovecraft story at all on Charles Dexter Ward before I played Thurisdan. So I had no Cthulhu, no Dagon, nothing like that to draw upon.
That reminds me, Dagon, Slan.
Yes.
When are you planning on doing your video?
Oh, I just finished reading the issue and I started recording. It's going to be a while. In fact, I was going to tell you after the stream that I'm about to release another Weird Tales, but it's the preceding issue. So don't panic when you see that.
I haven't edited any of the audio on that one yet.
So no, I have to record. I haven't even begun editing that.
Chat's been really quiet. Did we lose them?
What?
I said chat's been really quiet. Did we lose them?
Chat have been quiet tonight. Yes, we've for the last half hour we've consistently had about 10 people in chat. Okay. So I think they're just relaxing, listening to our dulcet tones talk nonsense.
I used to do a progressive muscle relaxation session when I was an addiction counselor.
Yeah.
And I would I would modify my voice and modulate it to go along with that. And I would have people out like a light.
It's Daniel's influence on the chat, and Mike confirms.
Is it a good thing, Mike, that oh, sorry, Straw Piglet. Is it a good thing, Mike, that is it that we are desperately boring, or is it our dulcet tones, our gentle voices?
And Straw Piglet, I'll point out we did talk about stout, so it's close enough to stout in my book and tastes much better.
What is it, ASM or whatever it is, the soothing
ASMR?
repetitive noises that put people
ASMR.
Yeah, something like that.
That was my drink of choice.
There we go. Yeah, stout.
Oh, black card, just like me.
Yeah. Mountain Dew Zero.
I started off, Iman, you'll be happy with that. I started off with that.
Nice. Oh no, that's got sweeteners in it.
I'm not on that full sugary one, so I don't do
it's good
full
though.
Sugary.
Iron Brew's always good. Makes you stronger.
Yeah. I don't do the full sugary ones anymore. Not that I've got any problem with sugar, but it's
so those two adventures you mentioned, Tharadoon and whatever the other one was called. What makes them Cthulhu inspired?
Well, Sodcamp isn't remotely Cthulhu inspired, but Tharadoon, it's the colors, the imagery, and the carvings, and the idea of a lost, unknown god,
an ultimate evil,
Yes, yes.
And it's a cult. And if you if you play the module right, and you do certain, we lost him, and do certain things, you will convert to that cult without having any say in it whatsoever.
Well, he didn't want us to spoil anything for him. That's why he stepped out quickly.
That's why he's disappeared. Yes, yes. Hello, Elfbait.
I had a chance to buy another copy of that still in shrink wrap, and I didn't, and I kicked myself for it.
Yeah. See, I'll get a picture up of the cover. So the cover has always been
It's very different from all the other modules.
Absolutely.
What's the setting? Is it just just a temple?
There's a gnome village that's been getting attacked by I don't remember what they are, some type of goblinoid-esque kind of thing, and they ask you to help them out, and you track them back, and you through the mountains to this temple, and it's got such an awesome combat at the beginning because it tells you wave by wave by wave by wave. If you set off the alarm, how these things come out and attack you across this bridge. So assuming you survive that attack, when you get inside, there's not much left in there that's still alive. So that's where you add in the creepy factor.
Okay.
And assuming you get past the upper temple,
That's a hell of a battle as well. It's a hell of a battle.
Oh yeah. But there's a trap, and it's again, you can't play like, okay, I rolled to find and remove traps. No, it's like you have to. There's something. It's like you have to push it in a couple inches and then turn it and then slide it, and that's what opens the door. It's not a matter of just finding the trap. You have to actually manipulate it. And as you go down lower and lower, there are things you encounter that if you touch them or if you interact with them in a certain way, it opens you up to the mental contact with this imprisoned god, to the point where you will end up basically losing the character. You will become a worshiper of Tharizdun without ever rolling anything to avoid it.
So the equivalent of going insane.
Yeah, yes. That's exactly what it is. And if you get to the very bottom and do everything the right way, you find this form in some kind of field. And they've never really said that the indication is that's where his avatar is imprisoned, because the god itself is imprisoned in a pocket dimension that all the other gods had to get together to basically make this mini plane and lock it away in.
Yeah.
But when I played my evil campaign, they had to get down there and access the avatar with a certain artifact, and that allowed the priest of Tharizdun to get I think 3rd and 4th level spells. And then there were things he could do later on to increase that awareness until, the ultimate ending of the bad campaign was you put together the Theoparts, and you were able to crack open that pocket dimension and release him.
Yeah. Interesting.
We didn't get that far, but we did a lot of fun evil stuff.
I see what you mean about the cover, by the way.
Yes.
Because
it's really off-putting.
That thing in the middle is part of a statue that you find. It's got 4 different sides. Each one is a different aspect. Like there's one that attunes to thieves, and one to fighters, and one to clerics, and one to magic users, and in the walls there's these I don't know how you pronounce it, bas relief or bas relief, whatever, of all these serpents and snakes and all that, and everything is in sickly hues of purple and violet. And you can, if you do it right, you can make that just a creepy setting, like make your skin crawl kind of setting.
Yep.
It's interesting because the cover's disturbing in a way that it makes me think, what the hell is that? But not in a way that makes me want to read it.
And I think that's the first introduction of Grell, which are just a cool monster.
I was just about to bring that up. I've got to get to Amazon for this picture, unfortunately. Come on.
And that was the first time I ever saw Qual's feather token as a magic item, too.
This is the back cover.
Oh, that's a bit better.
That is a Grell.
Yeah, and if that's not a Cthulhu-esque monster.
Yes.
It's
a brain with a beak and tentacles.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had elf bait. They had been
Where
in the
have I
thing.
seen something like that before?
And for the
Probably
sci-fi
Bloodborne,
nerds,
who
if you find the Wand of Force, it is technically a lightsaber.
Yes, yeah, it's an overly powerful magic item.
get the sci-fi out of John's conversation.
Well, it's a wand that has a couple different uses, and one of them is that it'll extend a blade the size of a bastard sword and with almost zero weight, and you can use it in
Okay.
melee combat. And if I remember right, it does all sorts of extra damage against undead, maybe something. I don't remember, but
And this is the other module in the of the pairing.
Straw Piglet Fiend Factory is part of.
How do you
White
pronounce that?
Lost Caverns of Sojkanth.
Sojkanth.
The Fiend Factory, yeah, it was in the Fiend Factory, I believe in White Dwarf, but it was in the Fiend Folio. It was in the hardback Fiend Folio. The Fiend Factory was a section of White Dwarf. But that's Lost Caverns
but a
of
lot of the
Sojkanth.
Fiend Folio came from there. So
Yes.
That looks like a much better cover.
But what was the Grove monster mark? That's the important question.
This is to be honest, I've said many times, this is one of my favorite covers of all time. I absolutely love this. Is an Errol Lotus piece. I absolutely love it. I think it's so even
It's quite evocative.
Yeah.
When you think of Dungeons and Dragons, that's the kind of scene you picture.
Absolutely.
And
that's
before
not
I saw this cover, I couldn't picture how a breath weapon could be electricity. You know, like I just, I didn't quite picture it, and like seeing it there was like, oh my god, that's how it works. Like I think I was 12 or 13 or whatever, but
yeah, so a big bolt of lightning coming out of its mouth, basically.
Yeah.
Great enemies, Behirs. Great enemies.
Yeah, we tried finding ways to rationalize how different breath weapons work. Like a black dragon was basically vomiting on you. That was where the acid came from, and a green dragon was letting out a huge belch.
Yeah.
Poison gas.
While we're on evocative covers, another great cover. We're in the rambling bit now, aren't we?
Yeah.
Aye.
It can't be Playboy, John. It can't be Playboy.
No. I do like this one. I do like this one a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot going on there.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I just finished the audiobook of Descent into the Depths of the Earth, and it was pretty good.
Yes. And in the background, yes, yeah. I thought I'd seen the Grell in Fiend Factory. It was in the last.
It was just a couple episodes ago that you did that.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in the background there, you've got the voluptuous Blipdulpulp. Oh, she's voluptuous. Wonderfully beautiful female body, but she's got the head of a distorted lobster and great big lobster claws.
So you need to be cranking some B-52s in the background when you meet her.
Yeah.
Rock lobster.
Yeah, that's the
Right. Anyway, I've got work in the morning, and we've gone past pumpkin hour.
okay.
We've gone past pumpkin hour, so I'm going to do my little pumpkin, the goddess of surf and turf. Yes. Have you ever, Iman? Have you ever heard the song "Rock Lobster" by the B-52s?
I've obviously heard it referenced in Family Guy, but I don't think I've heard the actual song.
Oh, it's fun.
Do it, do it. In fact, we'll do that on Discord before I go to bed tonight. Right.
Okay.
Yes. So, yeah, it is time. It is time for me to depart. I'm going to say a big, fat thank you first to Daniel, who came and went early on. He arrived on stream. He didn't say very much, and he fell asleep.
But we love him anyways.
We love him anyway.
Yeah.
What's the next thing on Saxius's list?
I don't know.
You remember?
I don't know.
We'll find out in the next episode of Midweek Geek.
Yeah, we'll just go down that list. One thing I am looking to do in the non too distant future is play a game of Mafia on a live stream.
Oh, yes.
Have you ever played that?
I don't think so.
No. Oh, it could be great fun.
Whoa, you guys haven't played Mafia?
Table Dynamics is on his list next.
Yeah.
All right. But I would like to run a game of
really
Mafia.
fun.
And to run a game of Mafia, I would ideally need 8 volunteers who are willing to commit to the bulk of a stream. And I imagine the game will last about 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is 2 of you are bad guys, 6 of you are good guys. The 2 who are bad guys know the identity of the other bad guy. The 6 good guys don't know the identity of anybody.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking some kind of role-playing game or something. Yeah, we did this in Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to,
it's also known as Werewolf.
Werewolf, yes, yeah. And it's on telly as The Traitors. So
yeah.
But I'd like to run a game of that on live on stream. And the Mafia would have their own little Discord channel where they could communicate with each other while they're playing. That would be the idea. So we'll see. We'll see. Certainly not next week, but maybe in a few weeks' time.
Definitely let us know in the chat or in the comments though whether you'd like to see that, because we'd definitely be down for doing it.
Absolutely. So Bear was on earlier. Check out Bear's channel. Bear gets really in depth in terms of details of world building. As does Saxius, who was with us earlier as well. Saxius doesn't have a channel, but Bear does. And with me,
Society of Role Playing Gamers. If anyone's looking for it,
gamers. That's yeah. Slan joined us towards the end. You have a channel, which is, and you're pumping out all sorts of old weird stuff, aren't you? Basically,
mostly whatever strikes my fancy. I'm all over the place, and I like it that way.
Yeah.
You got me into listening to old 20s and 30s. They're not really horror, but scary stories collections on YouTube when I'm working now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Halakar and Iman have both been. Halakar, you've been really well behaved tonight.
I'm sorry. Well, it's only Wednesday. Friday is when I get my freak on.
Right.
When he's not on camera.
Yeah. I'm hoping I want to move this computer over into my office, so I'm hoping next time we get together I'll have a different scene other than my bed and my posters on the wall. Not that it'll be any better, but it'll be different.
We'll look forward to your new location. And of course, Iman, you are Intellectual Quandary on YouTube, and you've been playing Bloodborne on your channel recently.
I did my first stream of Bloodborne on Sunday. I had 8 viewers at my peak, so that was quite fun.
Cool.
We had some people from the channel tune in, Slan and Keith, and Keith, actually, I managed to give him a bit of help with the bit he was stuck on, and now he's flown past me. So that was always fun. But yeah, Bloodborne's very Cthulhu-y, which is part of the reason why I'm drawn to Call of Cthulhu more than D&D, because I have already an interest in that sort of thing. But if you're interested in that sort of thing, please do check it out. I stream on Sundays in the evenings on UK time.
That's something I missed. I wanted to ask Saxius. I see on Discord it always says he's playing Helldiver, and I want to know what that's all about, because all I can think of is World War II dive bombers in the Pacific. Curious what that game's all about.
I want to play some of these games, which is why I'm going to be saving up for a new computer. I'm going to go for 4.3 gigahertz processors, 32 gig of DDR5 RAM, and a GeForce card of some sort.
Yeah, Elfbait pretty much put his finger on it with Helldiver, so
it's the new Halo. Yes, Elfbait, we'd like to have you back on the stream again. You need to give your work your work meeting organizer one of those and say, "Oi, arrange meetings at a different time." It's like me. I can't be on your Sunday streams because not at all, because Sunday's now it's a 14-hour workday for me, which
Yeah.
is a nightmare, absolute nightmare.
I've got church obligations most of the day on every Sunday. So.
Yeah, I run my shop for 6 hours. I come home, I throw some food down my neck, and then I'm writing a quiz for 3 or 4 hours. Then I go out and host it. I'm basically going from 10 o'clock in the morning till I get home at 12 o'clock at night. So it's great. Love it.
Just what you need on a Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, it's equivalent to my Friday. So if you can imagine doing a regular working week, but your Friday always being 14 hours.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's lovely. Oh, it's lovely.
Oh, something else. I found a place that does silk screening for shirts so that I can get my the old Geek t-shirt made up hopefully in the next week or two.
Oh, marvelous. Yes, do
Are we going to have some official merch?
There is some official merch already.
What?
Have you never looked at my? You haven't never looked at my link.
You never looked in the doobly-doo. He's got links.
What? It doesn't say
What do
it
you
at the bottom of the videos.
Doesn't it?
Normally, when you've got merch, it comes up in like a little window underneath the title and stuff.
No, I haven't done it. I don't have to do any of that. I've just got a link to.
I'll have to have a look.
I've just got a link to it. I think I've sold 3 t-shirts, and one of those had to be refunded because they hadn't got any in Halicar's size or whatever it was.
Oh,
I don't know what they expect, what kind of shape they expect gamers to be in. But
No, that's a shame. That's a shame.
Mhm.
Anyway, I have got to go because firstly I've got to go onto Discord and introduce Rock Lobster to Iman, and then I've got to go to bed. So I'm going to say thank you, chat. Check out Elfbait's channel to see Elfbait's with us at the moment. Other people have been in chat who've got channels, but right now I can't remember because there's GM Cody. Yes, certainly GM Cody's got a channel. Check out all those good chaps, and I'll see you Friday.
yeah, and you got Andrew's link up there from earlier too for the Greyhawk thing as well.
I found that. Yeah, put that up. Yeah. And on that note, we're nerds are not known for their adherence to
Their svelte
dieting.
physique.
Yes. Yeah. Right. On that note, cheers all, and I shall see you all on Friday. Good night.
Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.